got IBEW sued. And Paul Menger, their boss up there in Washington, they were certain would have said, "God damn it, you ought to have been more careful what you said in this thing." But you can't say anything now because the lawyers drew Gordon Freeman's telegram and sent it to the secretary, and they had all the Fearing and Wycliffe have been tickled about that in there, and. If Paul Menger jumps on Fearing or something like that, invariably he's going to say, "Well, now Dixon said I could do it," and then they go around mumbling about them damn bald-headed lawyers. Lawyers do serve a very good purpose for union organizers. You can always blame us with some of the things that you get into in there, and everybody. And there's not much anybody can do, because Willie Hines wants to know if Ed Blair can sue me. Now, at the outset, I told you in most common law actions for libel and slander that truth was a defense. Now, Ed Blair's never going to sue me because it would destroy the privileged communication, and I can tell what I know on Ed. And then, too, as I told you, the legal profession has a stronger union than any of you have here. And he couldn't get another lawyer to file that suit against our union rules. Now here's the telegram where the boys in Washington gilded the lily again. They sent this to one of the editors of the paper down there. Said the following telegram sent to Honorable Willard W. Wirt, Secretary of Labor, quote, "The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, AFL-CIO, hereby formally charges Royce Kaufman of Mendenhall, Mississippi, editor and publisher of the Simpson County News, with violation of Section 203B1 of the Landrum-Griffin Act. Respectfully request immediate investigation of this violation. Section 203B1 provides every person who, pursuant to any agreement or arrangement with an employer, undertakes activities where an object thereof is directly or indirectly to persuade employees to exercise or not to exercise, or persuade employees as to the manner of exercising the right to organize and bargain collective through representatives of their own choosing, shall file within 30 days after entering into such an agreement or arrangement a report with the Secretary signed by its President and Treasurer or corresponding principal officer containing the name under which such person is engaged in doing business and the address of its principal office, and detailed statement of the terms and conditions of such agreement or arrangement, and that such report has been filed, although the employer involved has admitted in its answer in Civil Action Number 3682, now pending in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Mississippi, Jackson Division, that the company organized a group known as the Universal Advisory Board, which included among its membership, they said, Royce B. Kaufman of Mendenhall, Mississippi, and evidence in the deposition taken in said case has disclosed that a principal purpose of the said Universal Advisory Board is to keep the union out of Simpson County. It is further alleged that the Simpson County News has followed a definite policy of using its editorial page and news pages to persuade employees not to exercise the right to organize and bargain collectively. Furthermore, the said Simpson County News has published a full-paid advertisement in support of the Universal Manufacturing Corporation's opposition to the union, and has refused to accept a similar full-paid advertisement on behalf of the union. Respectfully request that this flagrant violation be made the subject of appropriate criminal proceedings under Section 209 of the Act and of adjunctive proceedings under Section 210 of the Act. We respect the freedom of the press, but this case involves the abuse of press privileges in the interest of an employer pursuant to an arrangement with the employer who is seeking to defeat the union by improper methods, unquote. Signed, Gordon Freeman, International President, IBEW. Now, that copy was sent to Royce Kaufman, the editor down there. Now then, here's a copy of the handbill. There's the top of it, and then it quotes this telegram I've just read in here. Now, this was passed out, and this is what got us one of the charges that they put in the bill. Here's what Fearing and Wycliffe said. Oh, you weren't there. You see how he's weaseling out. You know, back in the WPA days, you had two going and two coming and two working. Well, we paraphrase that with the union organizers. I can know that Fearing and Wycliffe are going to disappear when I get ready to put on or take some testimony that's really important and I need them. They both go home. One of them lives in Florida and the other lives in Ohio. And they don't ever say anything about it or where they are. They just disappear. And I call all over the country trying to find them. And I say to them, now, when you keep in contact with me, I may need you. God damn, I got to go home sometime. And they are kind of young. I guess they do. All right, now I'm going to read you now. All right, then Wycliffe did this. Well, another thing, too. They had Paul Minger's assistant down here, Tony Bellissimo, who was down here. He was helping one of these things. And I don't know whether any of you know Tony or not, but he's a very sensitive man. We were taking some depositions up there, and, of course, you're supposed to try to keep just a little bit relevant to the subject matter anyway. So they had put some sort of a notice on the company had down there on the bulletin board, and whoever took it off the bulletin board was one of those Johnnies who didn't learn to read, and they copied it down and it didn't quite come out all right, and Tony thought that they had called him, as he said, a whore. Well, they put that on the bulletin board. So I'm out here. We got a choice. I mean, we got two witnesses here, and so I'm saying to these people in here, now, which one of these witnesses you want to put on now? We got to let the other one go. So part of them wanted one, and part of them wanted another. So Tony speaks up and said, I want this one. He called me a whore. So I offended him mortally. And I said to him, I don't give a goddamn what he called you, and here that's another lawsuit. If he called you that, he may prove it on you. I want to know now, I want you people to get together and tell me which one of these witnesses you want. Tony's lip is still poked out. I go to Washington and he let that man call me a whore. It turned out they just misread. I mean, whoever copied it down didn't copy it. They didn't call him a whore at all. But his lips still poked out because he didn't think that I didn't become properly incensed at what they were calling him. Well, I frankly didn't care at that time just what they did call him. Oh, lawyers have all kinds of problems. It's not all beer and Skittles, representing the labor unions for lawyers. And we have some problems, too, with our own people. And there is something about a labor adherent, when you put him on the stand, he immediately considers that he is a member of a subversive activity and he ain't going to tell you a damn thing, even his own lawyer. A few years ago, I'm getting off the subject a little bit, a few years ago, Ed Blair put a picket fence, women in rocking chairs in the driveway of a garment factory up in Macon, Mississippi. And, of course, they filed a suit, an injunction, and alleged that he was mass picketing and blocking the driveway and things like that. And a real sleepy international representative come in there and sat in my office and brought the bill of complaint that Ed said do something about this. So I read it over, and I said, did Ed put those women in rocking chairs out there? Not half asleep. And I said, God damn, Ed Blair knows better than that. He said you'd say that. They're up there broadcasting the violence on the picket line and things like that, and so I rush up the country up there, and I sort of got a tip-off. One of the waitresses in there sort of tipped off the fact that somebody was carrying guns on the picket line, but Ed sort of hushed her up and got her out of the way. We was up in Columbus having breakfast, and I got down there, and the pickets carrying shotguns. And I said to Ed, what the hell are these guns doing on the, you know what the judge is going to say when you go in there, and that's, oh, they're bird hunters. What the hell are they doing on the picket line? Oh, and you got problems, I'm telling you, Representative. Bird hunters. Now, how do you think I can convince a rural judge up in rural Mississippi that they just stop by? Where are the birds? And then he comes in and says, you never tell me anything I can do, only what I can't do. All right, here's what Tony Bellissimo wrote in this one, in here. We told you so. More about the big blunder. The following telegram was sent to Willard Wirtz, Secretary of Labor, Washington, D.C. Copies to G.O. Parker McGee Courier and Royce Kaufman, and I read you the telegram that was sent. Now they embellished it down here. The same telegram was sent to the Secretary of Labor, Willard Wirtz, formally charging Royce Kaufman of the Simpson County News. Both these editors may be subject to jail terms if convicted of violating the law. Special notice, the Truth Committee will run special buses to the county jail during visiting hours to express the community feeling for freedom of the press. You got him in jail already. Now, how do you think a Simpson County jury is going when they take one look at that and that lawyer reads that out to them? Because this wasn't submitted to me, because if it had, I'd say, take it out, and they'd say, oh, you don't know anything about how to communicate with people. They're expecting me to communicate with that jury down there, though. All right. Now then, here's really the one. It really puts a clincher on it, isn't it? Hey, Archie. That's Archie Sergi, the president of this company that I told you has got a prison term, and he can sue me, and I'll show him his... he's got a criminal record, and I'll show him his record in here, because I got it. Hey, Archie, do jailbirds of a feather stick together? And you ought to hear what these lawyers, they get up and read that on air. Every time we meet for any purpose down there to talk about this case, they get up and say, look at that. Calling my man a jailbird. And you know what Wicklif's defense to this is? Of course, Tony still ain't speaking to me because he said I let somebody call him a whore. But you know what Wicklif's defense is? Well, I merely asked a question. Well, you can be just as libelous in a question as you can in a statement. But there seems to be in Wally's mind some injustice if you can be libelous in a question as well as in a statement. But I can't change the law. Does Universal Management still insist on keeping their employees from getting a wage increase after April 23rd? Vote yes for justice. Vote yes for an increase in wages. Let the truth prevail. Now that's, hey, Archie, do jailbirds of a feather, and here that really incensed them. Here, and that one, if you figure out the number of words in that, it's going to be about $2,000 a word by the time that jury gets through with that jailbird statement down there. But of course, I don't think that the federal court, the United States Supreme Court, if we can get it up there, will let it stand in here. Now then, I'll find the tape that they object to on that and read that to you. He had a picket sign already printed. We're going to picket me. He hadn't been around since when I showed him the contract. Your Truth Committee told you the biggest blunder committed by editors of newspapers in a long time, and proof positive. Not quite grammatical, but there seems to be something about communicating with people in here that you don't have to be grammatical in here. The consensus of opinion is that lawyers are unable to communicate with idiots for some reason or other, but we do it all the time. Judges, lawyers on the other side, clients, jurors. The McGee Courier and the Simpson County newspaper, this is on the tape now, the McGee Courier and the Simpson County newspaper editors, Geo Parker and Royce Kaufman, not only put their foot in their mouth, but actually they have their foot practically in jail. Already tried, convicted, and sentenced. They have violated the law, the Landrum-Griffin law to be exact. And your Truth Committee was pleased to see the morning handbill wherein the president of IBEW has brought formal charges against these men. Read very carefully, if you will, this morning's handbill so that you will be fully informed of who was really telling the truth. These men, along with the captivated crowds that make periodic trips to Patterson, New Jersey, to be wined and dined by the Universal bigwigs, are now running scared. Ran right into the Simpson County Courthouse. A mere increase in the wages, being working condition, holiday, vacations, and working conditions guaranteed by a contract have caused them to get offer, fight among themselves, and panic over the thought that a yes vote Friday means money to over 600 workers of Universal. The full-page ad placed in both papers, McGee Courier and the Simpson County News, by the Good Time Playboys was an insult to the intelligence of you workers. We will debate all issues in plants before you, the workers, and let you decide. And I repeat, we will debate any and all issues in the plants before you workers. Why don't the company debate? Why won't the company accept our challenge? Afraid of the truth and results? Yes, they are. They are running scared. If the company refuses to debate or accept our challenges of the past week, this is an admission that they are lying to you workers. This is an admission that they do not intend to give you wage increases. The best guarantee we gave you that in writing is a yea vote Friday, April the 23rd. The big question is, will the company debate? Thank you for calling your Truth Committee. This is your international representative, Wallace Wickley, hoping you have a good day every day. Now that is the basis of their lawsuit. Now, do you have any other questions? Do you want any comments on this thing? And by the way, do any of you international representatives who would like to have rebuttal time up here for what I have said? Do you have any questions? Any other questions? You mean you know everything about it now? Yeah. Hello, Ransom. How are you? What was in the pleadings that caused us to file suit? Yes. Yes, we charged them. There were 31 named defendants in here. We charged them in a civil rights action of being in a conspiracy to prevent Fearing and Wycliffe from going to Simpson County and passing out handbills and communicating with the workers. They would do that this way. See, they had this Universal Advisory Board set up in the latter part of October, the 1st of November, 1963. Now, we filed unfair labor practice charges, but they send in a bunch of shining knights in here. Mr. Gold saw the light, and he got out of it in here. And they came in here and they couldn't find any of this. So when we filed this lawsuit and started to take their depositions, we found that in the latter part of October and November, they had organized the businessmen and public officials down in Simpson County into a universal advisory board. Among the objects, of course, they said the general object was to integrate. Now listen to this in here. It was to integrate the industry into the economy, to assist the company into integrating an industrial plant into the agricultural economy of Simpson County. But we made them produce a copy of the minutes of the first meeting. Alvin Binder, a lawyer for the company, a lawyer here in Jackson, announced at the outset at this meeting, and it shows it in the minutes, that he was representing the president and appearing there as a member of that advisory board for the president of Universal, a man named Archie Sergi. Among the things that he said, in speaking for Archie Sergi, was, we're not afraid of a union, but we don't want a union, and we want to keep a union out. So we got that by making them produce, under the federal rules of civil procedure in here, a copy of those minutes. They quit keeping minutes now. They don't keep any now, and you'd be surprised how much these people have forgotten about what happened. They don't even know who. They know they didn't pay for all of this stuff, but they don't know who did. And here now we're going to have to take a look at the company's books to find out who paid for this. And then the plant manager, in answers to some questions at this first meeting of the Universal Advisory Board, got up and said this: we are going to hire only people from Simpson County. We don't want anybody from Jackson or Laurel because they may have been infected by unionism. That is, they may have had something to do with the union. And the only way we will hire outsiders to keep the union element out of this plan is if some member of this advisory board will vouch for that employee and vouch that he's not a union man and not favorable to the union. Now, we got all of this. The board couldn't find it, and I don't think John Leibus and his staff down there can read very well either. I'm hoping that the board in Washington can do better, because we gave all of this information to them, but they got around there. I mean, they got more moth-eaten rules down there at that board in New Orleans. They said, we can't consider this. We can't consider this because it didn't happen after you filed your petition. Well, I said, John, God damn, it's been going on all the time. It's still got the Universal Advisory Board. Here's two members clobbering the hell out of it, and you say you ain't going to consider it. No, can't consider it. The board has said that if it didn't happen after you, during the time you filed the petition and the election, well, we can't consider it. Well, that's flapdoodle. That's idiotic. And this thing, a guy beat your head in and then don't do it after the election is no sign that you can't scare hell out of the employees down there. But what he's done to you, take brain surgery to get that stuff out of their minds. And then I doubt whether that worked. Some of them don't have any brains. Surgery would not be effective. But anyway, we got this stuff. We're using it in our civil rights lawsuit, and we were, and I think we've been able to impress the board up there with it. For instance, too, as I told you about this instance in here, the Philadelphia and Reading, which is a big corporation, bought all of the Universal complexes. Universal, incidentally, has a plant up in New Jersey up there, and they're organized by the Teamsters, and the majority of their employees up there are Puerto Ricans and Negroes. But I can show you here in the deposition that we took from Archie Sergi, and they introduced all of this stuff in here. They had the gall to print in these newspapers that if the union comes in down here, 50% of the workforce will be Negroes because the union will insist on doing it. And then they said Hoffel gave 25,000, said a union, they didn't say which one, but of course it was the Teamsters Union, when Mrs. Luuzzo was murdered over here in Alabama. If you remember, Hoffa went down there and donated $25,000 to, I believe, NAACP or CORE or something of that sort. They got that mixed up in this election in here. They don't. You want your money to go to NAACP and CORE and SNCC and things like that. And John Leach didn't think there's anything wrong with that. He said, well, a union did give $25,000. Well, what effect do you think this has upon on those southern white women down there that have just come off of the farm and who've not yet gotten sufficiently into the grip of these installment credit people that they feel they need a raise? $50 a week's a hell of a lot of money if you ain't ever had but $100 a year in here. But when you buy washing machines and television sets and cars and dryers and things like that, and decide to move into the big city of Mendenhall or McGee, you're going to find $50 don't go very far, and then you're ready for the union. And that's takes about 5 years and 2 or 3 lawsuits from these loan sharks before they get ready for it in most Mississippi communities. You have any other questions? Oh, I got lots of them. If you'd like to see some of the stuff they published against us in the editorials and things like that, I would show it to you. But anyway, Philadelphia and Reading sent their man down here to prepare their plant manager for the speech that they'd lock his doors if they voted the union in here, and they put it in an editorial. Now, you know, when you're dealing with a conspiracy, you don't have to get a confession out of the conspirators to prove it. The circumstances to prove it. All right, now what would you, as both fair-minded people, not prejudiced for or against the union, of course, sitting on a jury, if you heard that the editor of the McGee Courier was down there with some more of his, the plant manager and the plant attorneys and the industrial relations man of both companies, Universal and Philadelphia and Reading, and they're preparing a speech. They admit that they were preparing a speech, and the plant manager gets up and says uses phrases and exact words, and the next day the same thing appears in the editorial. You think that's just an unusual coincidence that they didn't help each other? You'd have to be bored for the simples to accept that. And nobody but Ray Smithart, who came from deep ranking, knows what I'm talking about. They're being bored for the simples. If you have no further questions, well, I'll take my files and the van and move them on back up to my office.
No, you're going to stay around a while, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, I'll stay.
We're going to have another speaker, and I was going to
Yeah, I'll be here to hear what goes.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that we put on the next speaker, and then we have a question and answer session after, because some of these things are going to be related.
All right, good.
You might be in a position to answer something.
Good enough. Have I confused you enough?
You probably noticed on the program that we have Thomas Harris, Associate Counsel of the FLCO, listed as one of the speakers to review recent board decisions and change in board procedure and things of this kind. About 2 weeks ago, I got a call from Tom, and he advised me that they had a young fellow doing some work for the FLCIO that had just left the National Labor Relations Board, who was actually in a better position to deal with this subject than he was. And he sat here through this conference all day yesterday and today, and I feel that he probably has a pretty good idea now about what some of the real problems are in this field of organization here in the state of Mississippi. And I've advised him not to limit his remarks strictly to board procedure, change in board decisions and change in procedure and things of this kind. But to cover the field in other ways, we think he might be in a position to kind of wrap the thing up and give you some advice about what he thinks can be done, maybe what some of the possibilities are, the need of legislative action, amendments to the act and things of this kind. Al Horn yesterday, if you remember, touched on this, the fact that there is being some work done, and requested information to submit to the Labor Committee, but especially in areas where these newspapers have refused to take the full paid ad, and we're interested in this when you got your this, I think, as part of the picture, because this is a good case to point to. And we want to make sure that Al Horn gets that material. Dixon, he's not listening. He's working on another client back there. I don't know if you were here yesterday when Al Horn touched on this matter of newspapers refusing to take full-page ads or taking ads by the union. You've already turned that over to him? Well, good, fine. We want to make sure they get that. This time it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present to you Mr. Lawrence Gold out of Washington, who is actually a member of the Albert Wohl staff, I believe, in Washington, who, of course, is retained by the FL-CIO, the same group that Tom Harris works with. Mr. Gold?
President Ramsey, ladies and gentlemen, when President Ramsey told me I'd be last, I promised him that I'd be brief, and I think that's the best thing I can do after you've all been subjected to speakers for 2 days. Now, the one thing that I've gathered from listening here is that people up north just don't understand what's going on down here, and people who organize up there and who pass on decisions and so on just don't know what you're facing. And because your situation is different from what happens elsewhere, and because the National Labor Relations Act applies in all 50 states, you've got to expect that the decisions and all the things that you need to help you aren't going to come about because of the fact that it would have to apply all the way across the board. But I do want to end up by asking you what particular things would be most helpful, and I think that the best way of introducing these comments is to give you an instance. Recently, the board has taken under advisement, and I'm not even sure maybe the decision has come down since I left Washington, it's taken under advisement the question of whether they would allow union organizers to get lists of employees and addresses as soon as a petition for an election is filed, and also whether they would allow union organizers on planned grounds, or not allow, but would require employers to allow union organizers onto plants to make speeches during the last 5 or 10 days of a campaign if the employer gave captive audience speeches himself. Now, the AFL-CIO suggested these positions because of people coming out and listening to organizers talk in conferences like this and finding out that these captive audience speeches and the lack of lists and so on were among the problems that organizers faced all over the country. And we were able to get up a well-documented brief of how many captive audience speeches were made and so on all throughout the country, and the effect that this has on employees, and to present this to the board. So I think much more important than what I can tell you is what you can tell me to take back to Washington, because we've got to know where the shoe is pinching in order to be of some help. And I think that these things can bear fruit, as this example I gave. I'm pretty confident that the board is going to give us some of what we asked for along the 2 lines I've mentioned, and that this can be a real help. For example, it was suggested to me last night that even if the board gives you names and addresses after a petition is filed, that's too late, because these employers are moving in on you so fast that everything's lost by the time you get the names and addresses. But it might be that you have to alter your techniques and go for an election even when you just have 30 or 35% of the cards in order to get the lists, and then figure that you're going to take your lumps in losing the election once, maybe even either getting it set aside or coming in the next time, rather than waiting until you have a pretty big majority. I understand that most unions won't go to an election unless they have 50–60%, but it might be an investment to go in earlier in order to get the list, in order to get on the grounds once. Even if you lose, you may be able to get the election set aside or to get yourself in a better position for a second election. So this is the kind of thing that even your special circumstances can be adapted to what the general law is moving toward. Also, I wanted to point out to you that there have been some problems, particularly down here in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals on authorization cards. Now, there are not many things that lawyers can do for you, but one thing we can do for you is to give you some simple advice that's easy to follow, that doesn't hurt you, and that'll keep you out of a trap. And the problem has been that the cards themselves, or the organizers, when they try to get people to sign these cards, talk about elections rather than authorization as a bargaining representative. And once the organizer says that the card is mainly for an election or only for an election, or if the card is ambiguous as to whether it's for an election or for immediate authorization, then the cards can be challenged, and they can't be used to get one of these 8A5 bargaining orders we were talking about, even after an election is lost. So the simplest advice I can give you is, one, make sure that when somebody signs a card, you say that the card is for immediate representational authorization, that it may be used for an election if you have to, but that's only secondary. Now, I don't know, maybe you can't get cards under these conditions, but I'm telling you, if you go beyond this, that bound, you're going to get in trouble, even when you got what looks like a card majority, and could get one of these bargaining orders. Now, I don't know how good these bargaining orders are, but they're better than nothing, perhaps. And tied in with this is, I'm not sure, again, how this works, whether the internationals provide you with these authorizations cards or if you haven't printed up yourselves. But if you do have them printed up yourselves, make sure that they don't say anything about an election on them. They should say that they're for authorization, to representational authorization. Or if they say anything about elections, that should be in small print, and in large print should be that the employee is designating you to represent him. Now, if you do these two things, this Burnell foam remedy that was talked about yesterday, the remedy which gives you a bargaining order after you get a majority of cards, even if you lose an election, could be more meaningful. There's another related problem, and I'll go into it if, depending on the response to this question. How many unions down here waive initiation fees during organizational campaigns? Do any of them, or none of them, or all of them? Okay. Now, this is another trap that you can fall into, and a union up in Ohio won an election 75 to about 20 and had the election set aside because they weren't careful in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. So I think this is another practical thing to keep in mind. If you waive initiation fees, you've got to do two things to be safe. One, you've got to inform the people that the waiver will be kept open till after the union is recognized by the employer. And secondly, you've got to make it available to anybody who wants to take it up during that period. And thirdly, never tell them that they'll only get it if the union comes in or if you win. So, three things. If you waive initiation fees, tell them you're waiving it until 30 days after the union is recognized by the employer. Two, tell them it's open to everybody. in the plan. And 3, don't tell them it depends on whether you win or lose the election. If you fail to follow any one of those 3 rules, you can have an election set aside, or you can have a card check set aside, even though you have a majority. So these are just 2 simple points, but this is the kind of thing that we can do most easily for you. You're facing problems, as I say, that the whole act just isn't geared up to face, and you've got to, I'm afraid, go some of the way alone, but you can stay out of these kind of silly traps that are easy to fall into. And these 2 examples I just think might be helpful. And as I say, the third thing, and the thing I started off with, is that your comments about what you think are the most effective things that our employers are doing to you that hurt are really the most valuable thing that can come out of this, because as I say, I think that getting these lists and getting a chance to get onto a plant during just before an election, if the employer makes a captive audience speech, will be helpful to you. And we only knew about it because organizers told us what they thought the employers were doing that was most effective. Now, I'll start off this by saying it's my impression that the 2 things right now that are hurting most are, one, that you don't get a fair shake always from local law enforcement. And I'll have to say, I just, except for something like the civil rights action, I just don't know what we can do for you there. The second one is that you don't get a fair shake from newspapers, especially in rural communities. Now, Mr. Horn yesterday suggested that there may be a way of making newspapers accept your paid non-defamatory advertisements. And that's certainly, I take it that would be very important down here. The third thing you've suggested is that these employers are starting, the third thing that's impressed me about talk here is that the employers are using Chamber of Commerce and local civic groups and so on, and perhaps it might be helpful if there was some way to get these groups under the National Labor Relations Act, so that if an employer enters into some sort of an agreement with these groups. Right now, the National Labor Relations Act only stops employers from restraining their employees. Perhaps from what you've said, another idea would be that outside groups who attempt to coerce and restrain employees should also be brought under the Act. Now, I'd like to, those are the things that have come across to me. Now, I'd like to open it up and get some more suggestions from you all, particularly what type of propaganda or threats you think are most effective that employers use against you.
One of the most important things, in my opinion, which could be done, probably is necessary by legislation, if it ever is done. And that is to provide penalties of some sort. Perhaps order to recognize the union and bargain when a company is found guilty of an unfair labor practice prior to an election. Because this business of having a second election is for the birds. When you've lost the first one as a result of what that company's done, you're not going to win 1 out of 1,000 of the second ones. So all the company has to do is to violate the law and then violate it again and violate it again and keep on violating it ad infinitum. And all that'll happen is the board says, don't do it again. We'll hold another election if you do. That's for the birds. Let's get some relief.
Well, let me ask this for people who've been through second elections. Do you find that employers are in all-in are at all inhibited by having the first election set aside.
Not by a damn sight.
Is this unanimous, or is there disagreement here?
We've got quite a group here, I mean, of a number of international unions, steel, rubber, paper, IBEW, aluminum, I don't know, we got just about everybody amalgamated, ILG, most all of them here that's been doing any organizational work in the state for the past few years. And I think that we might have one or two exceptions to this rule, where you lost the first election, and the board sets it aside, you come in and have another election and you win it. Now, the only time that I can think of in recent years is the start line campaign where I've made mention here about where the petition was filed. The first election was set aside, went into the thing again, the second election was set, that was set aside, and after 3 years later, the third election was set, and the union finally won the bargaining rights in that plant. But in the due course of this thing, there was a terrific turnover of employees in the plant. This is the only case that I think might be an exception, whereby the union actually won not the second but the third election. But wouldn't this be about it?
No, there's another one.
Another one?
Like that.
Yeah.
In Greenville, the Atkins Saw case.
Well, that's a little bit different.
The loss of the first one, it was set aside.
Yeah.
The loss of the second one, it was set aside. The union did not go to the third election then. They waited a couple of years and went back and filed a new petition and a new proceeding and won the election.
Now, they're present here. The ones who conducted the Atkins Saw thing is here. But this is pretty well it, isn't it? There's been very few elections won, really, when it was set aside. You did win one the second time around? The third time. See? But as a rule, what goes on in this area, in this state, we will have a campaign, and the company goes through all of these things we've been talking about. You'll have 80% of the people signed up, we'll say. And it's usually the business groups that really go to work. And this is a problem as tying these groups in and with the company, and the fact that there is collusion here. There's no question about it, but proof of the thing is a problem. But I think it might be well to mention the one real case we had that I think is important to mention here is the Dean Industry campaign in Pontotoc that the upholsters lost. Yes. And they might say that they approached this one with the thought in mind that they were going to go the 8-5 route. And they were very careful in the language they had on the authorization cards. The people were advised when they signed the cards that they were signing this card designating this union as their bargaining agent. They had around 80% of the people on the cards, and when the business community went to work and the newspapers went to work, they destroyed the majority, and the union lost the election by, I don't know, it was fairly close, but some 30 or 40 votes, 27 votes. This is the most recent case that we had. Of course, they had another one in Okolona very similar to this. But we've had a few exceptions, but most of the time, after they've destroyed the majority in the first election, we've had very few won the second time around.
How about this? Do you think that having a right to bring a damage suit against employers if they commit unfair labor practices during an organizational campaign, maybe even including damages being figured as what the employees would have gotten under contracts with comparable employers, the threat of this kind of damage suit would slow down any of these employers?
Anything would be better than what we have.
Well, but it just isn't anything. We're only going to get some things. We want to get the most effective things we can get. Now, I want to know what you think is going to be most effective. People in 1935 thought they had something effective when they got the National Labor Relations Act. They're wrong.
Where would you exercise your remedy?
Well, you'd be in federal court, of course, but that's a problem. I don't know. If I would think the usual venue statutes, you'd have to be in the federal courts here. Could Could you win damage suits down here in federal court of that kind?
We come to the problem again of the cost. We go into court for suits, we've got a high gentleman back here, and he continually emphasizes the fact that this costs money. It depends upon who's got the most money.
Yeah, but I mean, if
They
you...
can take these same suits you're talking about, if it's worth enough money to keep the union out, they're ready to take it to court and go on.
All right, but I'm...
You can't get out of it.
Yeah, but...
Unless you've got the International Union Treasury behind you, that don't happen too often. And I'm an international representative, by the way.
All right, but this is what I want to know. I mean, about the practicalities. The thing is that people, when they're faced with large liabilities, sometimes that's not going to be a slap on the wrist, and sometimes they don't do the things that would get them these liabilities that they would do when the only consequence is a board order. Now, I don't say you're going to bring a suit in every case and every time, but I would think that if you got one case where there were substantial damages, that would tend to slow them down, less likely to ignore the law. How important do you think it is that employers tell employees that there's nothing they're going to get automatically from the union? If they go on strike, they can be replaced and that kind of thing. Do you think that this is one of the most effective ways they have to make employees nervous and scared, or do you think that employees don't pay much attention to that kind of thing during a campaign? Well, come on, somebody speak up so... Well, how often do employers use this? Is this something that they use a lot, or is this something they use only when a little? How important is it?
Depends on how the employees take it. If it's scared, they keep it.
Yeah, but well.
That's used in every campaign.
Of course, you have to keep in mind that this is a right-to-work state, and this is the thing that they use. We got a right-to-work law in this state. If you go on strike, we can replace you and so forth.
Yeah, but you can replace people. This is something you can replace people in non-right-to-work states.
I know, but this is the
right-to-work
thing.
isn't going to
get the message better this way by saying this is a right-to-work state, and then we got a right-to-work law, and we're going to replace you if you go on strike. Of course, the thing would be true the other way. See, we still got the problem of getting this thing on the tape. So if you got an important question, we want it on the tape.
Recommendation would be that we find a means by which we can cut through all the delaying tactics at the labor board level. If we could either get by statute or by regulation absolute requirements for speed in these cases, we would gain immeasurably, because it's in the delaying tactics, which are possible under the present rules of the board, that we lose out very often.
Well, the delay in the board is always talked about, but here I just I wonder about if there are any effective remedies. The law always takes time. You're always in a bad position if you have to rely on the law. I just can't see that there are too many ways that the board can be speeded up. One of the ways I think they're doing, one of the reasons I think they don't do as good a job as they can in investigating your cases is that they've got time limits on them now. And therefore,
Title VII, for example, requires the commission to act within 30 days.
yeah, but under Title VII, after that commission acts, you're going to go to court, and that's going to drag out for years.
Maybe, but at least you've got an absolute mandate that they should rule within 30 days.
Okay,
The board tends to fiddle while Rome burns. You know, this is where they're at.
well, maybe I still have divided loyalties, but I know that the board thinks they're overworked too, and they're going faster than is humanly possible. So, but I'd like to get back to, aside from changes of the law you'd like, the kind of thing that you find is most effectively used against you. Now, I think that this replacement of economic strikers strikes me as an outsider as the kind of thing I'd use if I was an employer, and I would think it'd be effective. Now, I take it that the consensus is that it does. Do many employers say that use the fact that they don't have to agree to anything, they can be as tough as they want to, nobody can make them sign a better contract, that they're giving all that they can give, and you fellows are just dreaming if you think you're going to get a pay raise when the union comes in? How do they like that one? Do they use it? Do you think that it changes employees' minds?
That is not only effective in the organizing campaign, but we have one of those at Jackson Tank where the steel workers won 2 elections over the objections of the company and their attorneys here in town, and they have consistently used the threat of replacement throughout the negotiations which have been carried on since last October. The company never refuses to negotiate and does take and give a little at a time, going all the way up to 13.5 cents. But we cannot get the men to strike, although we can get them to turn down the company proposal. But they will not strike because of the threat of their job, and the company saying, of course you understand, if you strike, you are through, and there will be an election. And they are holding no more elections now because they tried that route. Also, this idea of the replacement has worked to a great extent, and they do it by hiring them other places. I have had, since I have been up here in December, I have had elections for 4 complete officers groups. And my latest one was held the 28th of last month, and yesterday I was informed that those men are gone and hired away. So it is very effective. Although we're able to maintain our membership, we can't even keep officers with this kind of threat going on.
All right, can anybody else want to speak his mind here?
Mr. Gold, I think that we've all faced this problem, and I think that the legal beagles in Washington, D.C. that's representing the AFL-CIO should do everything possible to get the act amended to protect any employees in it, wherever a campaign is started, from any discharge for any cause without a hearing and giving the union representatives opportunity to be present. The reason I say that is that the first dash out of the box, once the company knows that somebody signed a card or somebody promoting it, they fire. Well, your campaign is killed right then, and then most of the people in the plant fears that they will lose their job because of signing a card, or the company will know it, although they want a union and they need it, but they're fearful of signing a card. And I think that I could give you an example of what I would say blackmail, because a woman that aspired by a company was threatened by the plant manager, and even her husband was working at a furniture company. Her husband was talked to and told him that he'd lose his job if she signed an affidavit or a statement against against the company for discharge of union activities. And they even brought a letter for her to sign saying she didn't authorize me to file a charge. To show you how serious this is, I can name your company, U.S. Gypsum in Greenville, that they immediately fired some of our committee, that they had done everything possible to win the first election. Then when we set up the committee and notified them the officers, we had to do that under the Taft-Hartley when there's a requirement to sign non-communist affidavits. They fired 2 of our officers, and I fought that company 6 years, me and Attorney Pyle, before we was ever able to get a contract. That's how vicious it is. So I think that's the kind of amendment that this act needs for the protection of the people. You all give that consideration, will you, please, sir?
I'm almost going to ask, does anybody think any part of the act works, but I won't even bother to do that.
The thing that will do more good in organizing than anything else you can do, I think, right now is a repeal of 14B.
Is that a minority opinion?
The very threat of it, the very threat and the very fact that it has been repealed will take away the argument that they're using down here.
Take a lot of it away. A lot of it away.
Yeah, but what happens, what do you think will happen after 14B is repealed and you organize a couple of plants and some strikes go on and all the people get replaced? Because you still can replace it. Let me ask this. Do you think that the removal of the power to have product boycotts that are coming from struck plants has hurt appreciably, not in organizing, but in getting them to be reasonable when you start to try to get a contract? Would that be of material, if you could have product boycotts products coming from struck plants? Would that be one of the most effective ways? In other words, when you could have them, did you find the things that mattered appreciably, or did you find that they didn't work?
Well, we got the 2 clothing unions here, ILG and ACWA, I think, that should comment on this one, because I know that in your situation, that you're a lawyer, that you really have to depend on economic pressure in areas in the north. Would you like to comment on that, Benny? Conference? I'll
Yes.
tell you what the question was when he gets through here.
I was reading the newspaper myself, but as I understand it, it's a problem of economic pressure. In our industry, it certainly is. We have been using this in some areas quite effectively. For example, on a runaway shop, Judy Bond out of New York, which we had under contract for many, many years, are now located in South Alabama. We have applied this sort of pressure very effectively in some southern cities. But unfortunately, up north where we are very well organized, it has been a problem where we cannot get the cooperation of other unions. Then we run into the problem of how do we effectively combat this problem with the people involved on the local scene when they throw answers and questions at you that how can you honestly be sincere in my welfare when you're out asking people not to buy our products? So how do we combat this
Well,
problem?
the thing he's talking about there was a matter in the law. Go ahead and explain it again. I don't believe he fully understood the question.
I just said I was reading the paper.
Yeah. Wait, let him report it again. I want to add together and see if they close it. Working people.
What I was asking is, do you think it would be helpful when you try to negotiate contracts, especially if you had if the product boycott of if product boycotts of struck plants were legal again? In other words, if you could have people like the Teamsters or processors further up the line refuse to handle.
This is a hot cargo.
Right. In other words, if hot cargo could be modified to allow hot cargo agreements for struck goods.
Yes. Now this is what we.
But not just helpful, I mean, how relatively important do you think it is? Do you think that that would be more important than having economic strikers be only able to be replaced by temporary replacements, for example? I mean, you're only going to get certain things, and the thing we're trying, well, what it...
I didn't mind. You want to come on up here?
Well,
Any of you got a question? Now come on up here and let's get it on the tape.
Now, this is a comment that Brother Gold can take back to Washington, and he's not going to need any legislation to remedy, and he's not going to need to go before the Labor Board, nor any legislatures, or the Congress, or anybody else. But too many times, I have seen a campaign undertaken in this state, in Louisiana, other southern states, where the same union will have under contract in the north, in the east, in the west, the Midwest, other plants of this same employer, and not one iota of assistance be given by that international union in assisting in the organization of an unorganized plant. I have seen that happen outside the same union, time and time again, where a sister union undertakes organization and the sister union have contracts elsewhere and don't open its mouth. They might send you a copy of the contract if you ask for it. That's all. Now, I think one thing we can do before we run all over the lot to all of the government agencies and everybody else is get our own damn house in order and do something to help ourselves within our own family. Take it back to Washington and tell them.
Well, I would certainly agree with that statement, but I don't think Mr. Gould is the proper man to work on right now on this. What we want from you right now, for him to carry back to Washington, is in what areas do you think the most good can be done by way of amending the Act? Do you think that the hot cargo provision will help if it's reinstated? This is the reason I directed the questions at the two garment unions, because frankly I know that in this state, the conditions that we have, the only way that you can win a lot of these strikes is to have the teamsters and the railroad brotherhoods refuse to move the cargo produced by people working behind a picket line. This is the only way you're going to win a lot of them. Right?
Well, that's the way it seems to me. I want to know if it seems the same to... I'm just sitting there up in Washington.
All that. That this would certainly help, and then...
I'm just about out of questions. These are the things that strike me that that the most important things would be to get the Citizens Committee under the Act and to give some more effective remedies for people who break the Act. As I say, damage actions, having economic strikers, limiting the replacement of economic strikers to temporary replacements, and perhaps being able to reinstitute product boycotts and struck goods. Now, these are the suggestions that I had in mind, and they seem to be suggestions you feel would be helpful, and if nobody can think of other things that they would believe would be either more helpful or as helpful, I think I'll sit down.
Well, let me...
I'd like to say one thing in regards to that teen industry she was talking about a moment ago. I was on that campaign. Now, in addition to the sheriffs and the mayor and the board of supervisors and all the rest of them in the community, the business people, you had one man from the agriculture department. Now, they're taking names like we had the meetings. He had a little book out. He was taking names down. People he knew that was going in there. And he's working in agriculture.
You mean he's on a payroll of the federal government?
Yes, sir. What are you going to do with a thing like that?
sounds to me that if the agricultural department would be on the ball, that would be something he could get fired for, but I'd have to know a little more.
Yeah, we need Johnny here in this meeting. Well, I just use that one as an example. Because it's the most recent one that we can point to, really, where all of these various forces have been brought to bear. This is a situation, as I view it, the areas that should be considered. Number one, as the fact that these civic groups, the business groups, the law has to be amended some way whereby you don't have to establish the fact that there is collusion between these groups and the employer, that they're actually acting as an agent for the employer. This is where we're getting our brains beat out in campaign after campaign. The employer doesn't fight the union. These people fight the union for the employer, and you can't establish any link, any lines of communication between the two. The other area that is of equal importance, in my opinion, is the part played by the newspapers, and the small towns especially. You've heard several of the editorials read here this morning. The Dean Industry thing that I referred to was defeated by a combination of the two, the civic groups and the newspapers, destroyed a majority of about 80% by the time they went to an election. And these areas, along with the hot cargo provision, reinstatement of the hot cargo provision, whereby a union could refuse to handle struck goods. These are the three areas, in my opinion, that could do the most good in this state. Now, does anybody disagree with that?
With a little more obligation clause on bargaining.
A little more obligation on bargaining.
Yeah, they said they'll talk to you all day, but they're not going to do a thing.
Well, of course, this is all very true. But again, you get down to the cold economics facts of life. With the threat of a strike, if you make these changes, and you strike, and you know you've got some protection you haven't had before if your people come out, don't you think you're going to bring them around more at the bargaining table? I don't know how you're going to change the law where you can require them to give something at the bargaining table. This is really what he's getting at. They'll agree to bargain, and they'll sit there and they talk from now on, but they don't move. So your next course, of course, is a strike.
Yeah, well, this is why I talked in terms of giving protection to economic strikers in the product boycott, because I can't see Congress ever passing a law saying that an employer had to give you certain concessions or make certain agreements. The only thing you can hope for is to give your people enough protection so they'll be willing to go out and put the economic pressure on them. I don't see how you can have effective economic pressure if these employers can run plants successfully with struck labor. This is something I want to ask. If any of you have had this experience where you take your people out on strike and then they get them replaced with permanent replacements, and you try to keep the strike up with a picket line and so on, how effectively can these employers run their plants? Does their efficiency go up? Does it go down? Do they ever look for a settlement? Are they ever hurt enough to look for settlements in these situations where they're able to get people to cross a picket line and work for them? Have any of you had any instances in which a strike has hurt an employer sufficiently, even though he used replacements to seek a settlement?
Been very few of those. We've had a number of them strikes broke. It depends on the industry, I would say, number one, how long it takes to retrain or at least train a person for a replacement. I think about the Murray thing that we had in Hattiesburg, Mark, was a good example, where we didn't have the key personnel in the union out on strike, and they were able to bring in the strike breakers. And in about a 4 or 5 month period of time, they had actually been able to train enough workers to replace those on strike. And because because the Teamsters could not refuse to move the struck goods, and because the railroads were first forced to move it, we lost the strike. This was all we had left, you see. That's the reason I say that the hot cargo provision is the utmost importance in these situations of this kind.
Are the Teamsters organized down here?
Yes, Teamsters are pretty well organized. Most of the major truck firms are organized in the state. And they do cooperate, even though they're not in the FLCL. In most cases, they do. Come on up front, Ray.
I just want to comment. I don't
Oh.
have a question.
You don't want it on the tape?
Well, I want to add emphasis to the third thing. You mentioned the two. The third thing is this discharge of employees. There ought to be more teeth put into a penalty of some sort. To me, that's the morale breaker of an organizing campaign, is discharging the people.
The thing that J.B. Hunter touched on. Yeah, of course, this is true. The question about this is the fact that they'll fire their key people. They run the risk, you see. They know all the time that it's going to be an unfair. In other words, they're going to be penalized eventually. But the thing that they're interested in is breaking the back of the union, defeating the organizing campaign, and they're willing to pay the penalty.
Yeah.
Now, the very fact that a lot of these employers are hiring these notorious law firms and spending thousands of dollars in legal fees for people like Coleman and Lang is an indication that they're willing to spend this money to keep the union out. And if it means violating the act and having to reinstate somebody and pay them lost wages later on, they run this risk. This is the type of thing that goes on.
How many people, wait a minute, let me ask one more thing. How many people think it would help if when someone's fired you could go in and get an injunction that would have them back at work in 30 days or 60 days?
This would be the key to it, I think.
Do you think that would make an important Well, actually, the injunctions would be longer. They'd be until the board finally decided the case. No, but I'm saying they'd be even, if you got them, they'd be even longer, because they'd be an injunction to preserve the status quo, and that means they'd stay on until the case was finally decided in court, which could be anywhere up till 2 years.
This would be a very definite.
What happens in a lot of organizing campaigns? The lawyers advise them to fire fewer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we know that.
You have to hire them back. You can stop that fire.
Yeah.
Well,
Stop them from firing, or they can replace those people right there, put them back to work.
well, you know, it gets, I don't know if it's down here, but it gets even more sophisticated than that. I understand there are cases in which the employer fires him, makes it clear. He says, you're fired for union reasons. So the fellow runs down to the board, and the board goes there, and the employer says, well, yeah, I was wrong. I'll take him back. And then he takes him back, and he calls a meeting of all the employees, and he's got these people standing up there, and he says, the labor board's making us take these people back, but if they don't work well, we don't have to keep them, and I want to make sure that all of you know that these people aren't going to get any special favors. And then they wait until they get something on them, and then they start to disappear little by little. So as long as the employer has the power to fire for cause, you're going to, I don't know, this injunction is one thing, but it's not going to, I don't know exactly how much it's going to help. I think if you did that twice, you'd lose a rule. Yeah, but
With the way the board is set up now, we need every angle we can get.
I know, but I mean, why would that help you more than taking the first election, getting it set aside, and taking a second one?
For example, if you're going to file, like you say, with 33% or the 30% that's required, that still lets you 70% that you don't know anything about. But if you get the list with filing with 30%, you got 6 months later, you withdraw your petition to go back in for another election. If you file with 30%, the employer knowing this, he can go ahead and say, yeah, I want an election tomorrow, and he can stick us with a short period of time, which that list is of no value to us whatsoever.
No, he can't.
He can ask for an election when you get down and sit down and say,
Yeah.
I'd like an election.
He can ask for a consent election. You don't have to give it to him. He's got no right, just as you have no right now, he has no right to get a pre-hearing election. And a pre-hearing election is going to take at least 3 months. I mean, a normal election is going to take 3 months. So you're going to have 2 months with that list.
We had 30 days with ours.
Well, then they're moving awfully fast down here.
We had 30 days.
What, is that, was there any contest about the unit or?
It depends on where you're at. You're in the South now. Let's look at it.
But it would help, would it not? If the employers were forced to give you the mailing list, if the employer was forced to grant you equal time when he called captive audiences.
Wait a minute, only during the last 10 days was even proposed.
Well, of course.
He's going to
this,
call captive audiences before the petition, right up till 10 days before the election, and the board isn't going to say you have to go on because the courts have told them they can't do that. Now, we suggested that even despite the fact that the court said they couldn't allow the board to make the employer let you on at all times, they could allow you during the last 5 or 10 days. So that's all you're going
well,
to
that'd be
get.
a big improvement. You get in that 10 days before the election, I think you can turn them around. But, Willie?
I think they're losing sight of one thing here that you brought up yesterday, Claude, about the giving them a little bit of roast beef and tea.
The night before the election.
Happened down here at Stork Line. I was in that campaign. Now, the last election, you didn't bring this out. The last election, they didn't give them something.
Because this was part of the grounds for setting it aside on the second time around.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, the third time, they didn't give them this steak supper or this chicken supper, whatever it might be. Well, you didn't tell them about the guards, whether they voted out there under guard either.
No, we didn't go anywhere. We'd have been here for a week if we went into that thing in detail.
Well,
Lasted 3 years, remember?
It's important because they're going to use these guards, and they're using them all over the country. These secret servicemen that they're going out here and hiring, and that's who it was. All these things is important. I think should come out in a meeting like this. Might take a little time, but it was important to us that these something ought to be done for the employer to give these suppers. I don't know
Cut
anything
off
about
paying
Corona.
on
I don't know anything
activities
about
where you
it,
get.
but I'll ask.
Well, what you, Willie? Willie, what? Willie, what you're really getting at in this thing is the fact that
Financially contributed to the employee when they're giving him a supper. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm making sure. Isn't that right? Yeah, I think so.
well, wait, the thing about it is this. I think the answer to this one is something like this. There's a cutoff date on activity on both the part of the employer and the union. Say 24 hours before the election date, the day of the election, 48 hours, something like this. See, I mean, but what we're trying to do here now is to lay the groundwork whereby the act can be amended to circumvent some of these problems we're having.
I understand what you're trying to do, and I think this is important. Something ought to be done about these suppers that the employer is permitted to go out here and spend hundreds of dollars to give these employees and their family a supper the night or two before the election. So that's what's important.
Well, I think you'd hardly have a united labor movement on that one because I don't know about down here, but everywhere else the unions buy just as many suppers as the employers.
What you want is the right to also give them a chicken supper, right?
You have that right now. Just don't give them too much beer, but you can give them all the chicken they can eat.
Well, let me see though if we can agree on this. It would be helpful, would it not, where the company would not be able to call these people together in a captive audience and give them a supper the night before the election where you didn't have an opportunity to rebut. This is what happened at Starklar. I remember in one of the campaigns, they called them together the night before the election. The newspaper, the radio station run the ad over the local TV station the night before the election, and the union didn't have an opportunity to rebut. Well, so the answer to the thing, obviously, is a cutoff time for activity on both the part of the company and the union.
Well, let me say two things. One, the board presently has a rule called the Peeler's Plywood Rule, and I hope that the 15th region or whatever it is isn't different on everything, but you're not supposed to be able to have a captive audience speech within 24 hours of the election. Secondly, as I started off by saying, we have asked the board, the AFL-CIO, with the support of the textile workers and the operating engineers and some other unions, to require that captive audience speeches within certainly within 5 days of an election, that any captive audience speech can only be given if the union is given a right to reply.
This is your proposal.
Yeah, this is what we propose to the board. Now,
This would be helpful. My personal opinion on it. Do we have any other?
Somebody's hand was up back.
We have any other questions?
I agree with Mr. Starnes 100% when I think that the board should have the power to place a fine when they use these unfair labor practice charges. And they're found guilty of them. I think that the board should have a fine or schedule a fine set from anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 or $150,000.
Well,
And this would stop a lot of this unfair labor practice.
I think that they're...
Instead of being like the French kissing them on one cheek and then turning and kissing them on the other cheek the next time around, I think that they should say, well, okay, now that we've kissed you, you're going to get it.
Well,
You know what I'm talking about.
yeah, I think so. The board doesn't have the power to give fines, and it is unimaginable that Congress would give it the power. I have strong doubts that it'd be constitutional. I suggested that it might be helpful to have damage suits. Now, the idea here was you couldn't win damage suits down here. That's the best you're going to get. Now, if you people feel that paying a lawyer to win you a $50, $75, or $100,000 lawsuit isn't worth the money, then I can't cram it down your throats. But the consensus was that that's not going to help. So you're not going to get the board to give fines. Congress would never, in my estimation, do that. You could, I think, get the right to have damage suits, but and in order to discourage delay by employers. I've thought of one other thing. Nobody has mentioned it. Would it be helpful to have immediate elections on the filing of petitions, say within 2 weeks, when there was no substantial issue as to the unit and so on, so you wouldn't give the employer the chance to drag it out for 3-4 months when he wants to, in order to break up a drive you think is successful. Does anybody have any opinions on having pre-hearing elections when there's no substantial question about what the unit is?
I think
Well, this is what I would have thought this was a help now, but there seems to be some division of opinion here that wouldn't help that much. Well, but you got to strike a balance. You're not going to get a law saying that unions can get a fast election whenever they want it, but if they don't want it, they don't have to have it. Would it help more than it'll hurt, or what? I don't say that agree. The board would have the power to say that the questions they raise aren't important enough to delay an election. That used to be the rule before 1947, that the board you'd come in and you'd say, I want an election in this plant. And the board would say, sure, plant units are good. And the employer would yell out and say, my plant's different. The board would say, we'll hear from you later. And they'd hold the election right away. Now, in 1947, Congress specifically took that power away from them. And one of the ideas up in Washington is that we should press to get that back. And that's what I would think, but we have at least one. Right. Well, really, well, I'm saying you'd still. Well, I'm saying that. Yeah, I'm saying that in those cases where you've got a good campaign going and it's quiet, you could hold off and try to get one of these fast elections. In the other situation, you'd be able, if the board comes through with this decision that I anticipate, you'd be able to file your petition, get the list, and figure you're going to lose one before you win one. I mean, there are more than one way. You've got some flexibility. If the board gives you these lists and you think that they're important, in a proper case, you'd go in with a light signing in order to get the list and then continue your activity. In other ones, you'd figure that it was, things were going along smooth, and if we got this rule changed, that you'd go in and have a relatively quick election. Okay, thank you very much.
Appreciate it very much. I hope you've got something you can go back with now and give us some relief with. Yes. Well, now we've been talking about problems of organized and the unorganized here for the last day and a half. We want to talk to you a few minutes here about organized and the organized. We got Brother Knight here, I want him to talk to you a few minutes about some of the problems that we've got. This matter of affiliation is one of the utmost importance if we at the state council level is going to get the job done. We want to assure you, all of the representatives present, that you're going to get the fullest cooperation possible out of our office and this matter of organizing the unorganized. We want to also ask your cooperation and help us doing something about organizing the unorganized into the state AFL-CIO. And I'm going to ask Brother Knight to talk to you a few minutes about that problem. Brother Knight.
If you'll give us a couple of minutes, we'll make this very brief. I think this conference has been real helpful. We do have problems. Everybody will agree with that. But as Claude pointed out, there's been some problems that hadn't been mentioned here. And certainly, I'm talking now primarily to you people that represent international unions. The problems that we have in organized and unorganized, part of them at least, I'd say a majority, can be traced back to the ballot box. Now, we talk about the atmosphere in the local community when you start an organizing campaign. Why is this atmosphere what it is? It's because those people have been elected to public office. What is the situation in our state legislature? It comes right back to the ballot box when you start talking about organizing the unorganized. The problems we have are because we have been negligent. Now, the state organization is responsible for coordinating the efforts of the labor movement in the area of political action and legislation. And this is where we've fallen down on the job. And I'd like to ask the help here today of every person here in getting the local unions in the state of Mississippi affiliated with the state organization. We cannot do the job that has to be done in this state in the field of political action and legislative action. That is a must if we overcome some of these very problems that we've been discussing for the last 2 days here, unless we make up our mind that we're going to work together. Now, the people on the other side of the tracks, so to speak, how their forces coordinated. They have the funds to do the job with. And up to now, they have fairly beat our brains out at the polls at every election that I can remember of in this state. So if you people that represent international unions will please go back to your organizations, if they're not affiliated, talk to them about the importance of their local unions becoming affiliated and participating. Certainly, it takes funds. It takes more than funds. It takes full participation on a part of every local and every individual member of every local in Mississippi if we're to get the job done that we have to do here in this state. Somebody mentioned repeal of 14B this morning. Well, we could get into a heck of a long discussion on this. I just want to say this, though. If you don't think that we need to do a job, you just glance at the record of these so-called congressmen and senators, and I said so-called because they're not representing the people of Mississippi. They're representing just a chosen few. The record of the 5 so-called congressmen in this state and the 2 so-called senators is a disgrace to the state of Mississippi. There's not a single vote been cast in the first session of the 89th Congress in behalf of the people of Mississippi. We're not going to be able to organize the unorganized people in this state until we see that the people are qualified to vote and that they go and vote and that they know first what the facts of life are about those people seeking office. Now, this is the activities that is supposed to be coordinated by your state labor council. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't emphasize too much here today the importance of the local unions in this state.
being affiliated with a state organization. After all, we're the ones elected by the people, the officers in the executive board, that has to blaze the trail in the field of political action and legislative action in Mississippi. Now, I've prepared, for the use of those people representing international unions, some list of those locals that are not affiliated with a state organization. After the meeting's dismissed, as you pass by, I'll be happy to furnish you with these lists. We need your help if we're to do the job that has to be done. Now, Claude or I will be happy to accept an invitation from any local union in this state at any time and go before the local and discuss the program of the state organization and our problems. We'll be happy to do this, but first we have to be invited. So let us urge you to go back in your territory, in your area, and discuss this important matter with those local unions and the importance of being affiliated with this organization, because this is the only way under the sun. And we're going to be able to build that organization that has to be if we're to be effective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Knight. We have just about completed the business that we called you here for. Again, I want to say that we certainly appreciate the response and the turnout for this conference. Personally, I think it's been a very good conference, and I hope that each of you feel that it's been worthwhile to attend, that you have gained some knowledge that you didn't have or that you wouldn't have got otherwise. Again, I want to say that we're at your disposal anytime that you feel that the State Council can be of any assistance to you. And organizing, don't hesitate to call us. We've got the equipment in the office to help you do a bang-up job. If you get you a list of people, for instance, let me cite you what we can do. You get a list of people that you're trying to organize. You'd like to communicate with them by mail. You'll bring that thing over to the office and let us make some plates. And we can set up a file over there. We can run off a letter for you. We can do it all for you. We can fold in, we can address, mimeograph, or monolith the letter, stuff it for you, and all you'll have to do is put it in the mail. Because we'll have to charge you the postage and a little expense, stuff like this, because we're not financially able to get into all of this. But this is a service that we can offer you in this field of organizing. And this is the only way, frankly, you can get to a lot of these people is by mail. You send it in their homes, it'll be read. You know as well as I do, when you get out passing out handbills, a lot of them won't take the thing because they're afraid of supervisors looking at them. But if you mail it into their homes, they'll read it. This is a service that we can help you with. We can run off handbills for you, and we're doing this all of the time for a number of the international unions. I know that it's some of you, when you're up in the northern part of the state or down in the southern part of the state, it's a little bit inconvenient to come up here. But we are ready and willing to do what we can to help you out any way that we can. Do we have any announcements? Anyone like to say anything before we adjourn this meeting? Do you think the conference is worthwhile? I know we had one about 3 years ago when we got into some problems, and we felt that it would be appropriate now to call the people together. There's no need in all of us making the same mistake all the time. We might as well try to benefit a little bit by the expenses of other people. Well, if we don't have any announcements to make, the conference will stand adjourned, and we do appreciate your attendance. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'll see what. Got it on?
Yeah.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
4, 5.
Call the meeting to order. I'd like to ask you to stand and ask Brother Schaefer.
Our
Heavenly Father, we are thankful for the privilege of prayer. Father, we are thankful for the blessings Thou hast bestowed upon us in the past as individuals, as organized labor, and as parts of families. Father, we are grateful that Thou hast shown us the way to travel, united, that we might have a better way of life for each of us. Father, we just pray now for the leadership of Thy Holy Spirit as we go about our business, that the things that we say and do might be pleasing unto Thee, that we might take an attitude that we're out to better the way of life for all mankind. Father, then we pray that we might each look to Thee for leadership, for spiritual life, that we might set our sights on an eternal life rather than just here on earth. Guide our every thoughts and lead us in Thy Spirit. Forgive us of all of our sins for Christ's sake. Amen.
We have a couple of distinguished visitors with us this afternoon that we'd like to welcome to the meeting. Stanton Smith, Brother Down Pyle, I think.
Did he say extinguished?
Yes. All of you know both of them, I think. We also have a couple of new board members that we'd like to welcome to the meeting this afternoon. Before we open up the business of the meeting, I'd like to ask Brother Stanton Smith to give the two new members the obligation. Would you like to do that, Stanton?
Thank you, Claude. I appreciate the
Brother Jackson and
privilege
Brother
of
Bond
doing that.
from the end.
Would the two brothers please rise where you are and raise your right hand and repeat after me using your name or I use mine. I, Stanton Smith,
I, James Jackson,
do hereby promise
do hereby promise
to faithfully perform the duties
to faithfully perform the duties
of the office
of the office
to which I have been elected
to which I have been elected
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and to the benefit and honor
and to the benefit and honor
of the Mississippi AFL-CIO.
of the Mississippi FL-CIO,
And in the event of resignation
and in the event of resignation
or removal from office,
or removed from office,
or at the expiration of my term,
or at the expiration of my term,
I promise to deliver
I promise to deliver
to my successor
to my successor
all property in my possession
all property in my possession
belonging to this council.
belonging to this council.
I further promise
I further promise
to protect and defend
to protect and defend
the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations
the American Federation of Labor and the Congress of Industrial Organizations
during my term of office.
during my term of office.
Thank you, brothers. You're duly installed.
My privilege. Thank you, Sam. We have a number of items we want to review with the board this afternoon. And we hope that we won't spend too much time here this afternoon. Number one, I sent a piece of communication out to you some time ago requesting that you check with the international unions concerning convention dates next year, whereby we went in to set up our date for our convention if we wouldn't run any conflict. Let's go around the board and see if who has conventions next year. Jack, if you'd ever have a convention next year, what date would it be?
September.
In the month of September, do you know what date
No,
it
I
is?
don't know.
But it is in the month of September.
John.
Date hadn't been set,
Date
to
hadn't
my
been-
knowledge.
But it will be in September?
September.
Russ, you just had yours. You will have one next year?
Just come out of it now.
How about you, Bert?
We're having ours September this year.
Doris, you usually
June.
meet in June.
Around 20th,
Is the
I
date
think.
set yet?
20th,
Somewhere around?
around the 20th.
Oh, June's always.
Be the last half
Latter
of June.
part of June?
Mhm.
How about, Department, Marvin?
Next year, I believe in September, I'm not sure.
I think it's probably in September.
I think so.
How about you, Brother Nick? You just come out of yours.
come out.
Will you have one next year?
No, unless it's special.
How about you, James?
Well, ours will be next year, and it's usually in the month of May, but so far as I know, the date hadn't been set. It's usually the latter part of May. The earliest, we've only had it early in May one year, and that was in '64.
Usually the latter part of May.
It's usually from the middle to the latter part of May, usually around the 15th to the end. I've checked, and they hadn't definitely set a
They haven't
time.
set
so.
the date yet. About, IUE.
IUEs will be in September next year. It won't be a convention as such.
Well, it looks like ACWA is approving on a house. We set it right like we did. First part of June will probably be all right.
It'll be all right.
Maybe first
Yeah.
part of June will probably be all right, without running conflict with either one.
I think so.
Well, that's what we got to talk about too, yeah.
Well, I was always thought in the latter part of June, starting on Sunday, I believe it'd be around the 20th.
We only had one year where ours run from May into the first 2 or 3 days of June, and this was about 6 years ago. So I would say from the early to middle of June it'd be all right.
Is there any way of finding out if they've got it set before we?
Well, I tried, and they said they didn't have it set, but they probably will fairly soon now, and I can let you know as soon as I know, or as soon as they know.
Would appreciate that. CWA and ACWA in particular seem to be the ones we would have to know about. We try to set it about like we've been doing it. As soon as they get it set, I would appreciate letting us know. We're gonna have to make reservations for one of the hotels for it. They book up a year in advance sometimes.
Did Thomas show up here this evening?
Yeah, he did. Did he talk to the board?
No.
No. Well, he wanted to talk to the board.
He said he was coming back later, didn't he? Or maybe wait for you to call him.
Well, I thought we'd let him have his say before we got into the business.
Well, he said he would come back.
Yeah, the convention, the manager of the hotel wanted to appear before the board, yet invite you to hold the next convention here. Of course, she invited me. She don't like it, she wants to hide it, she said.
Well, I prefer this one, but it doesn't make any difference to me.
We'll give him a chance to get out there.
Well, I've got a better room than I usually have at the house there.
One trouble, you can't get in the hot water.
Who wants hot water?
He ran it for an hour before he got in it and wondered why he didn't have any left.
I tried to get it hot, it got cold all the time.
Used up all the hot water.
Used all the hot water up
Yeah,
before I take a shower.
Did you
Don't sit down, we're gonna ask you to stand up and dress up.
Oh, come on. First, I've been going today, that's what I'm trying to do here, is be informed.
We have, Mr. Thomas, who is in charge of sales, convention arrangements, what have you, with the King Edward Hotel. He wanted to, the opportunity to appear before the board, and invite you to hold the next convention in this hotel. So, for those remarks, I'll introduce Mr. Thomas.
All right. Well, what I do want to say is that we do want you folks in here with us next year. I've already talked to Mr. Randall, Mr. Knight about this thing. I've given him a written proposal, which I think pretty well specifies what we have to offer, and I think we've come up with a good, fair room rate. And I just don't believe anybody else in town would beat this presentation that we presented to you, and I feel we've got ideal facilities to take care of your organization. Hello, Bert. And I know that if any of you folks were up here when the communication workers were with us back in February, that you know we serve good food in this place too, and that's important. And about the gist of what I want to say is that we want you. We really want you. We'll go all out to give you good service and good food. By George, I'll be right here with you myself. When you come into our place, we don't turn you over to somebody that's called supervisor of service. The man that goes out and says, we want y'all to come in here, he's the one that services you right here, and nobody's gonna treat you any better than the fellow that asks you to come on in with us. And I just want to throw these things out at you.
that?
Does that rate include hot water?
What about hot water?
I wasn't in it this morning when I tried to take a shower with it.
Oh.
He was running the wrong faucet.
No, you only got one faucet in the shower.
What's your room number?
937.
But he's not lousing up the room at 9:30 now, and he didn't use his own bathroom.
I was
He
using
used
my own
this
bathroom.
He used the shower in his own bathroom.
Oh, but the rest of it was in yours.
That's right.
You should charge him double anyway, because he slept in two beds last night, two different rooms. He went to bed in two different rooms.
That's bad. I wouldn't have that looked into.
It's worse when you got soap all over you.
And on top of that, he's not used to soap. Well, we hope to eliminate that.
I thought I had the rate without hot water.
Well, we'll certainly get serious consideration, Mr. Thomas.
Well, I wish you would, and I mean every word I say now, and I really mean it. You folks have a good conscience, and you
Well,
don't need anything, our officer's right next door, just come over there and holler at us now.
Right, we'll be in touch with you. Thank you. Of course, I know that the board meeting at the last meeting, referred this matter and set the convention date and so forth, to the executive committee. But since we scheduled this meeting, we thought that we ought to bring this thing up, particularly on the convention dates. Now, if any of you, would like to make a bid for this hotel, we'd like to hear from you now.
What kind of, do you have those rates that he gave?
Well, he gave us a standard rate of about $7, wasn't it, Tom? We talked to him about saying that he didn't want a double room, you know what it was, about 10 or something. He gave us the 7 and 10, 2 in the room, I believe. It was a pretty good deal.
Well, we always have our state meetings, every one I've ever been involved in, here at this hotel, and, they've always been mighty nice to us. Anything we wanted, we got.
Yeah.
We asked for a lot, too, sometimes.
We asked for a whole lot, so, and I'm not plugging hotel or anything like that, but I've always enjoyed our meetings up here because we did anything we asked for, needed along those lines. It was there just shortly after we needed it. A lot of these hotels, I know in other meetings that I've been in, it takes 2 hours to get a blackboard if you accidentally decide you need one. Right here, I've seen it happen, where it'll be there on short notice. Just tell them and get it.
Well, of course, one of the major factors in the whole thing is open dates for the convention in line with what we've been talking about. We checked out with Heidelberg, and they've got the month of June pretty well filled up, I believe, wasn't it, Tom? Yeah. And it might be that it's not a necessity, we might have to bring it here, but all these things will have to be taken into consideration. But we wanted to get your opinion on this thing, and I prefer this hotel, and that's what we'll try to do. So, it's just been a matter of convenience more than anything else to hold it to Heidelberg.
There's one thing, Mr. Chairman, I might point out, I don't know how many of the board might be familiar with this, but there is one thing that bothers me about this hotel. The acoustics in this new convention hall they've got is the worst that I know of. You just can't hear what goes on. I've been told by several people that have been in meetings here about the difficulty in hearing. That's the one thing that bothers me about their facility.
Well, I've been well pleased with the Heidelberg myself.
The acoustic area he's talking about is in the King Edward Hall, the big hall. We were in a meeting down there not long ago, and you couldn't hear anything.
Well, John was wondering, would that be to our advantage?
Might possibly.
Depends on how soon you
Well, I'm sure the executive committee will take all these things into consideration when we when we do try to set the date and select the place. We have another matter that be necessary to bring up at this time. According to the Constitution and bylaws of our COPE organization, state COPE organization, the ward director serves on a year-to-year basis. And Ms. Kelly is presently serving in that position, was appointed and confirmed by the board at the last meeting. It would be necessary at this time to bring that matter up for board action.
Mr. Chairman?
Leslie?
I think, Ms. Kelly has done us a good job over the past year. And, with that, I'd like to nominate her for the incoming year.
Brother Gillespie has nominated Sister Kelly for another year.
Second nomination.
Second, do we have any other nominations? Not all in favor of Sister Kelly serving for another year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. I have been approached recently by some people from Prentice Hall publication concerning a labor library affair that I think that we need in our office, which will contain important labor law, the National Labor Relations Act, Wage and Hour Act, and each year they keep this up to date. Something that we need. Now the rate on that thing would be $174 for the initial publication and $160 a year to keep it up to date. And we'd like to ask you to authorize us to subscribe to this publication. Something we need from time to time for reference, not about as much as anything else.
Which service do you think we get involved? They put out a number of services.
This one here, Wage and Hour Law, National Labor Relations Act, and things of that kind, which they supplement, keep it up to date when any changes or amendments are made. Quite often we have organizers and inquiries and stuff like this on these items, and we don't have the proper reference until we check out with it.
Their representative was in town recently, wasn't he?
Right.
He called them.
They'll probably be at this meeting tomorrow. I offered them an invitation. They have from time to time put out publications on all of these things, and they got some pamphlets out on section 7. And they'll be here tomorrow probably with some of the stuff out.
There's several services. Stan might know which is the most thorough.
What do you think
Have
about
some
that? You
recommendations.
Yeah, there are 3 or 4 outfits that put these out. There's Prentice Hall and Commercial Clearinghouse and Bureau of National Affairs. We used to use the DNA service, and they're the ones that publish Congressional Quarterly. You just about have to hire yourself a new office bureau to take care of Pyle on these things. The problem with them, stuff comes in weekly, sometimes twice a week. And I think you have to measure off the benefit that you think you might get from all the trouble that they put this little system up to date. So most of your lawyers have these services to handle your labor cases.
That's the trouble. We don't have a lawyer to check with them.
And these things get pretty technical sometimes. I'm very dubious of the value of them, right? Of course, unless you have a lawyer, unless you're supplying it to lawyers who are representing it. You get some good
Well, it might be better for us to get some more study of this thing.
Have you ever looked at the DNA service on it? they've got some elaborate services that run you $700 or $800 a year, and of course they always start you off with a nice simple one, and then try to load you up with the expensive one.
The one that, I was thinking about covers way Federal Wage and All, Public Contracts Act, National Labor Relations Act, Federal Anti-Injunction Act, Reporting and Disclosure Law.
Most of the material that you need for the benefit of your affiliates on those subjects is available for you in individual pamphlets and things that we put out, or that we furnish to you in the Labor Department.
And some of this stuff that you get home, that like ruling, you get in the congressional report, but gives you a much wider service in addition to just labor matters. It gives you the whole picture of what's going on in legislation in Washington. Major legislation in the nation. This congressional report is to be a must for all councils.
Well, the thing about this whole thing here is that you got the complete act in itself, and any changes made, they keep it up to date.
It takes a lawyer to follow.
Well, we'll defer action on that thing then, and, give it some more study.
I'd like to throw cold water on it, but I think I ought to give you honest advice.
Well, that's what we asking you for.
We carried community service quite a while. Stanton says it didn't take it too long to get over our heads. And
Right.
we recognized the fact that it was practically money wasted, because when we really needed some assistance, we had to go.
Go to a lawyer anyway.
It's a good guideline, but it'll work your death to keep up with just guidelines.
Claude, I'd just like to say this, one of our locals many years in the past, and Tom might even remember this, one of our individual locals bought this B&A report, and it was almost impossible to keep it filed currently because they sent you a package each week, and you had to take out certain page numbers and insert certain page numbers, and the person that done all that inserting would know where the material was, but anybody else would be lost, you know, because it was, then you'd accumulate a stack of the old sheets.
Well, she is really on me up here.
We take this thing out ourselves, well, not the local actor, we paid for it and had an attorney, keep the thing up there, and of course, when we, well, it was Dick Carl and I before he got killed, automobile accident, we had him on a retainer at the time, the local did, of course, we contacted him, and he was going to keep his stuff up. He found it to be a most many jobs.
Valuable for a lawyer. A lawyer is going to handle these cases needs it.
Well, y'all done talked me out of it. I didn't defer action on it.
Keep on talking, you can draw you right into it.
While you're on this subject, though, I would like to throw out a suggestion, and something I think this council and all councils is this congressional coordinate service, which you get each week. And it gives you the voting record on every vote cast in Congress of every senator and every congressman by state. It gives you an analysis of legislation pending before Congress, the status of that legislation. This seems to me is almost a necessity for a council to keep abreast on
How
what
do we subscribe to that kind of?
through the congressional court.
Just watch it, didn't you?
Yeah, and then at the end of each year they send you a bound book which contains all the weekly bulletins.
What is that cost?
Congressional court, I don't know what the service costs. We get it, every co-area director gets it.
Yeah.
And most of the councils subscribe to it.
Well, this is probably what we need more than this other.
I think you do. I think this is, will be very helpful.
I think it's about $128 a year.
You don't used to get it even further.
Well, it'd be all right for me to take this matter up to the executive committee, next meeting. Okay, we'll pass over that. Recently, in fact, it's been about 2 or 3 months ago, I was approached by the director of the Research and Development Commission here in the state about furnishing them with copies of our convention proceedings. Trying to go back and
bringing them up to date the last 2 or 3 years. They don't have any library, anything concerning labor. And I told the lady that I would bring this matter up before our next board meeting. Find out if you thought there was anything wrong with turning convention proceedings over to these people and then keeping them up to date. It's not a public record pretty well anyhow, but if some of you think there's some reason we should do this, then we want to know about it.
What is it researching about?
This is this new commission that they set up, the last legislature did down. They're going to try to coordinate the activities of various research groups around the state. And frankly, they don't have anything at all on labor. You know what I'm talking about. I went over and had a lengthy visit. There's a lady that's in charge of the thing right now. They've got temporary headquarters in the Bosnianti building over here.
State agency?
Yes. And I told her that, well, as a matter of fact, we went back and dug up proceedings as far back as we could, particularly the emergency organization. We've got them on record. But I didn't want to turn them over to them without proper authorization. Somebody might see some reason maybe that we shouldn't. Personally, I don't see any reason, anything that they get out here that they couldn't get as a matter of record anyway.
Scattered all over the state, if they wanted them, they could go get them.
Yeah, that's what I agree.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that you turn those over to the research people.
I'll second it.
We having a discussion on that motion? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, so ordered. Now, we want to get into a matter with you now that's going to probably take considerable time to review the situation in its entirety. Several months ago, we talked to the executive committee about the need in Mississippi of trying to do something about organizing a bona fide Democratic Party in the state. The executive committee authorized Brother Knight and myself to work with other interested groups in the state toward this end. Consequently, we began to talk with people in Washington about this matter. In the month of December, I was at a meeting in Washington called for some other things by the FLCRO. We wound up in a meeting after our business up there was completed, National Democratic Headquarters, and reviewed this matter quite at length. The gentleman that we discussed it with was Mr. Clifton Carter, who is the president's right-hand man on the National Committee. We had most of the states in this meeting that went for Goldwater in the South. Most of the labor leaders, the presidents of the councils of these states were present. Mr. Carter advised us that he'd want to discuss this matter with the president and with some other people, and that he would probably want to call another meeting and bring in some of the loyal party people out of these states along with the labor leaders. This meeting was called in the month of March, on the 22nd of March to be specific. All of the 5 states that went for Goldwater were represented. The loyal party people out of the states that stayed loyal, most of the officials of the party were there, the ones that stayed loyal. States like Louisiana and Georgia. That ex-Governor Coleman, Doug Wynn, Bob Oswald, who most of you know, remember, Jackson County, and myself. We spent all day discussing this thing in that meeting. They had representatives of the Negro community from all of the states except Mississippi. at this meeting. For some strange reason or another, they didn't have them in this meeting, which we found out later why. They had a separate meeting with this group about a month later. As a result of these meetings, we began to hold a series of preparatory meetings with the leaders of the Negro community, some of the loyal Democrats and what have you, here in Mississippi, working towards this end. Brother Knight and myself representing this organization in most of the meetings, of course. We had a meeting about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Going to 1 year. 3 weeks ago. Approximately 3 weeks ago, we had a meeting here in Jackson with some of the responsible Negro leadership, Don Ellinger of the National Democratic Party, Deputy Coke Director Phil Wakeman, and Air Coke Director Dan Pyle, Tom and myself again representing this organization, and reviewed this whole picture quite at length. And of course, we also got into the matter of Negro voter restoration, keeping in mind that the Voting Rights Bill will pass before long. And the need of party organization. We laid some definite plans about what we thought ought to be done as far as setting up some type of a statewide organization to work towards rebuilding the Democratic Party in the state. We were not aware at that time that some leaders in the Negro community have been working on this thing from another direction over in Meridian. They got in contact with us after our meeting here in Jackson and advised us what they were doing. And this is not just Negroes, there's some whites over there too in this. Consequently, we combined our efforts. We had a meeting in Meridian 2 weeks ago this past Sunday, working in this direction. As a result of that, we have a meeting scheduled in Jackson on June the 20th for the purpose of organizing a Democratic conference. Be a statewide organization that will be responsible to the National Democratic Party. One of the prime objectives, of course, will be to work within the framework of the National Democratic Party. And we, of course, advise these people that we have been authorized by the Executive Committee to participate in this effort. Now, in the meeting on June the 20th, only those people that attend this meeting will be there by special invitation only. Now, there's a reason for this. Some of you have read in the papers, I'm sure, about some of our clashes with some groups around about the state concerning the Young Democrat organization. We found out as a result of some of our activities in Washington that what I refer to as a radical left-wing group had been trying to get a charter for a Young Democrat organization in the state. And after getting into this thing, we felt that if this group got the charter, then it would damage any effort that we might put forth in building a bona fide party in the future. This is the reason we went to great length to try to do what we could to block this thing. I want you to understand this. I don't know how many of you read the news reports on this, but this is what it was all about, and this was our interest in it. Now, this afternoon, they're having a meeting out at Tougaloo, another planned so-called planning session, which we hope we've got the right people in that meeting to block this effort again and try to delay action and give them an opportunity to organize some bona fide clubs around the state with the right people. How many of you, let me stop here, pause here, how many of you
acquainted with this young Democrat class you've had, and how many of you have got repercussions from your membership on it? I'm acquainted with yours, of course.
Number one, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with it. Well, I hadn't had any repercussions from the membership. I don't know how familiar they are.
Yes. Anybody else?
I'm familiar, but we hadn't had any problems.
You haven't had any problems with all?
Same thing with me, we hadn't had a problem.
Plus, they had them impressed on its usual magic job on this thing, trying to put it out of context, but one or two of the news stories on this thing was fairly accurate. The daily news story by the AP writer was pretty close to the situation. If you got that one, then you pretty well got the story. But I knew that the Birchers went to work in Jack's group over this thing, and I thought maybe they might have some of the other groups. While we on this subject now, we want to invite all of you to attend this meeting on June the 20th, if at all possible. It'll be at the Heidelberg Hotel in Jackson at 2 p.m. Now, we'll get the invitation out to you. You don't have to make a note. We'll be sending invitations to all members of the board. Now, the problem in this whole thing is going to be white participation. There's going to be no problem as far as Negro participation is concerned. They're ready and willing to go. And I hope that all of you recognize the fact that the political success of this organization in the future is going to be dependent upon the Negro vote, the coalition of the Negro vote and labor. Once this voting right bill passes, anybody disagree with that statement?
I say that all the time.
Hmm?
I say that all the time.
You got anything you want to add to that, Tom?
No, I don't think so.
But we want to try to get as good a participation out of the white community at this meeting as possible. I have been working with Bob Oswald and people like this, people in Meridian, people here in Jackson, loyal Democrats outside of the labor movement, and they are going to send me in a list of names of people to invite. And if any of you have anyone outside of our group that you would like to invite, would like to ask you to send those names in to us as soon as possible. I'll ask Brother Taylor and some of the rest of you to make us up a list of people in your area that you think would be interested in participating in this thing. Frankly, this is what the organization is going to be. It'll be an organization to work towards moving into the precinct elections and taking over the Democratic Party machinery in the state. This is one of the prime objectives of the organization. And the other thing is that we'll have a permanent organization to work in a presidential campaign with, something that we haven't had. All of you know what the situation's been here in the last two presidential elections. The party machinery went off with somebody else, and we had to start practically from scratch when it come to getting into the campaign. And this thing this time was the worst that I've ever seen. All of you familiar with that. So we felt that the best thing to do would be to start now towards building a permanent type organization, working with other people that had interest in the same direction as us. And
before you leave, that's something I want to say. I think you ought to spell out the need for white participation.
Yes.
A little more clearly. You see, we've got enemies in this state that don't want an amalgamation of the labor Negro vote. They don't want an amalgamation of the loyal Democrats with the Negroes and with labor. Now, if this meeting is going to be held here on the 20th, if 3/4 of the people in attendance at that meeting are Negro, the press is going to find out about it. And they're going out here and paint this organization as an all-Negro organization or an organization dominated with the Negroes. That's why it's extremely important that you have balance, that you have at least as many whites as you've got Negroes.
Absolutely. This is very true. This is something that we got to have, as a matter of fact. As I said before, the matter of Negro participation is no problem. It's going to be getting the responsible whites into the organization.
I'm sure that all of you are familiar with the fact that the MEC, the State Chamber of Commerce and what have you, taking a position, found at long last in favor of law and order and what have you, that everybody ought to have the right to vote and all of this kind of stuff. And at the present time, that they're trying to maneuver themselves into position to influence this Negro vote when they get to voting in large numbers. This has beat our brains out with the race question for years. Now they want to try to their best, appears to me, to turn around and get themselves into position to influence the Negro vote to our detriment. Now, we have been working very closely behind the scenes, of course, quietly, with the responsible Negro leadership in this state for some time. And in this group, you'll find it's mostly the NAACP people, the Negro business community mostly, the doctors, the lawyers, the people of this kind. This is who they are. These are the people that really have the influence in the Negro community in the metropolitan areas. Of course, when you get out into the rural communities, you have another problem. There is no real local responsible leadership in these areas. And this is the reason, as I see it, that the radical left-wing element, such as SNCC, is having as much influence as they are in these particular areas. Now, this particular group, the NAACP group, has split with the radical left element, such as SNCC. You understand what I'm talking about? They themselves have pretty well rooted out this influence in the major centers, such as Jackson, Meridian, and places like this. This particular group, as I see it, not interested in solving problems. They're more interested in keeping the pot of oil. They thrive on turmoil, just like the right-wing element does on the other side. But we want you to, again, try to come to this meeting and provide us with some names of people that you think would be interested in coming. I've talked with Ms. Spainhauer and Hattiesburg James and March Garrett down in your area, Brother Nikes, Judy Bohannon, and people like that. If you got anybody in there that you think we could depend on and be up here, we'd like to know about it.
No, that's good.
Okay. You got anything? You got anything else on that, Dan? No. We'll leave it. Anybody else got any comment? We call your attention to this, yes.
Would it be any way possible, and I think this is extremely important, Lord, that you could work with that so that you all could get, prior to the January the 20th, June 20th meeting, a pretty good indication of how many whites and how many Negroes plan to attend, and balance that thing before the meeting.
We worked on this already. We've got an understanding that each group will try to get 125 people, not over 125. Try to hit this to balance it out.
Yeah, well, they're going to have
We're working on that
success in getting them when we are.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. We recognize this. We're working on this already.
And if you can't come up, say the white group can't come up with 70, I think that was got enough sense to understand that they all have to center.
They understand. They're very understandable about this whole thing. They appreciate the problem probably more than a lot of our own people do in connection with this whole thing.
Because this balance seems to be the most important thing to come out of this meeting.
Absolutely, you're right about it. Yeah, we've been dealing with that thing all the way through. Hell, they recognize it as a real problem as much as we do. Does anybody disagree with what we're trying to do in this thing? Maybe I should put it that way.
I don't disagree, Claude, but a lot of our members do. I'll tell you.
Our members don't understand.
Well, don't feel bad about that, Bruce. A lot of mine do too, but we'll get
I'm not going to talk about my members. I'm talking about members in general, other organizations.
Oh, we'll get, there's no question of what there'd be repercussions from this thing, but let's, I think, it's got to the point now that that history is the best teacher in this thing. What have we accomplished trying to stay out of this thing?
But I will say this, though, in our last Central Labor Union meeting, and I know we had a couple of people there who were, I'm pretty sure, opposed to any such move as that, but I deliberately made the statement that, in my opinion, we were going to have to bring ourselves to cooperate with NAACP and its leadership in the state of Mississippi. And I invited any criticism any of them had to make. I didn't get any criticism. I don't know whether they had a change of heart or just didn't want to say anything. I don't know.
What was this at, Bert?
In our Central Labor
Central
Union
Labor
meeting.
meeting?
Uh,
I think it indicates a shifting of opinions on this question, because they've never been bashful in my experience in the past.
No, I have been drug over the coals before,
Yeah.
and I was maybe expecting a little bit then, but I didn't get it.
I think it was significant.
Well, I think you got to approach it also from this angle, that it's not a question of us helping Negroes to vote, not a question of whether Negroes are gonna vote or not. That question is
They're
already
gonna do
been
that.
decided. That's decided in the voting rights bill. And the only question for us is whether we want that Negro vote for or against us.
That's it, the whole thing in a nutshell.
Lord, I have
Mr. Chairman.
thought about that for years.
Will the National Democratic Committee recognize this group as the official organ, you might say, of the Democratic Party?
This is being done with the blessings of the National Democratic Party. Matter of fact, we had at least two representatives of the party down here at the meeting in Meridian. We had a representative of the National Party at that meeting, and we had Don Ellinger at the planning meeting we had here, and we hope to have representatives of the National Party at the meeting on June the 20th. Frankly, what we'll eventually probably wind up doing in this whole situation with the organization, if we fail to take over the party machinery and get ourselves in the official position, is that we'll have an organization that'll send delegates to the National Convention and contest the seating of the Mississippi group and demand recognition as the bona fide party representatives in Mississippi.
In order to do that now, it would be necessary to go to these precinct and county conventions
Right.
and come all the way up, you might
Right.
say.
Right.
And then, of course, go and be recognized.
Right. This is there's two major things that this organization will do. One is to organize Democratic clubs in the various counties and the cities, conduct an educational program, an organizational program to go into precinct elections, to get loyal Democrats elected at the precinct level, to go into the county conventions, and get themselves elected to the district and state conventions. This will be one of the prime objectives of the organization. Then, of course, in addition to this, in a presidential election, we'll have an organization, as I pointed out before, to work for the election of the national nominee. That's a big order.
Now, how will this thing work now at the state level, thinking in terms of state
Yes.
politics?
Yes.
Now, how will it work?
It won't participate there. We'll have to have a different type of organization. We've talked about this as far as a coalition of forces outside of this organization. This organization will not be able to participate in statewide elections and party primaries and what have you. It will, when there's a Democrat running against a Republican, if it's a loyal Democrat in the race. It will in that situation.
Now, is it the object that the Mississippi AFL-CIO will spearhead this thing?
No, we're
or
working in
we will
cooperation.
Be a supporting action?
Just a supporting action.
Rather than
Right,
spearhead.
right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, this will be joined by, interested members of the business community and everything.
Right, right.
Because I know exactly what's going to happen if it's not.
Yeah.
If it's not, representative of all the people, so to speak, you can stand back for labor getting into it.
Now, Claude, as I understood it, while I don't know where you wanna go into this tonight.
Yeah.
You were gonna set up your state organization with the base of your, Democratic clubs in your cities and counties, and they in turn would elect to the state organization.
Right. The thing will be set up very similar, really, to the labor movement structure here in the state, where you've got the local unions affiliated with the central bodies, the local unions affiliated with the state council. It'll be more or less a federation of local Democratic clubs brought together in a federation with representatives elected by these various clubs to the state organization. It'll be very similar to the structure of our organization. We have a proposed constitution and bylaws that will be presented at the organizational meeting on June the 20th. And we hope to have copies of that thing ready for everybody there. And we'll try to get copies out to the board members in advance of the meeting so you can review it in advance.
Let me say this, for Marvin, in connection with what you were saying, now let me, answer that just a little different fashion. We are hoping that a coalition will grow out of this organization, which in 1967, with any luck and in the light of the new voting rights law that's just about to be enacted by the Congress, and changes that'll be made in the state that'll have to be made. We're hopeful that we can put a coalition together of forces in this state, and the chances are now that we will have a good candidate for governor. By that I mean a loyal Democrat, that we will put everything that we have behind this candidate and elect the candidate for governor of Mississippi. Then when we have done this in 1967, a large part of the battle is over for 1968 because your governor is head of the party. And we hope to restore the party to the administration as it should be in Mississippi. That's all being taken into consideration here.
In other words, what you're proposing to do is to form a coalition as under this, Young Democrats of, to where by 1967 you will have all the minority groups within the state, such as labor, your loyal Democrats, your, Negro, and all of these in one coalition.
Right. Right.
This is effective, I
That's
think.
the objective of the whole thing. You put your finger right on it.
It can be effective. It can be effective.
I think, for the sake of the record, in order that we might know where we are, that, it'd be good for the board to go on the record on this thing, the board as such, instead of just action of the committee. Would somebody like to offer a motion on that thing? Prove of participation in this effort, yes.
I'll make a motion,
Brother Leakey is offering a motion for the state council to participate in the effort of building a coalition of forces with the Democratic Party. Motion second by We have any further discussion on the matter? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried and so ordered. I'd like to call your attention to the magazine that we placed before you. It's a official publication of the journalism department at Ole Miss. There's a couple of stories in there that you'll find of interest, I'm sure. One about former Governor Ross Barnett, and another about some of our problems. And the president of the state FLCIO.
former governor.
And yes, it might, Bill Barton, who did the story, the labor story, is a young fellow that
Boss Barnett and the White Citizen Council had this mayor job on when he was running as editor of the Mississippian at Ole Miss. This is the gentleman that wrote the story. He was a reporter for the Chronicle Star for a while when he came back out of the Navy. And he approached me about doing this story. They'd asked him to do a story. And he would have done it with or without my consent, I suspect, anyhow. Since he was going to do it, I thought I should cooperate with him. And I furnished him with a lot of material and stuff to read. And he got his story out of the material. And if you'll notice in the story, he points out the fact that the reactionary forces of the state, recognizing the fact that there is a natural alliance between labor and the Negro vote, that these forces took it upon themselves and infiltrate labor organizations and create turmoil and what have you within the ranks to keep this from coming about. And there's no question but what this is going on. The APWR, the Birches, and even the Klan in some cases. And it's all been done deliberately to keep this coalition from being successful. You'll find that story rather interesting, I think. And I'd also like to call your attention to the letter that we placed before you. A letter that I wrote the governor, commending him on his well, but you can read the letter, and of course you will notice that he finally got around to answering the letter on May the 20th.
You wrote it February 26th?
Yeah. May the 20th, he finally got around to answering the letter.
Behind in his correspondence, didn't he?
Yeah. But the interesting thing about the whole thing is the fact that he did answer the letter. Now, the situation being what it is in the state, with the reactionary forces that we have, I think that all of you recognize the fact that it's took a lot of courage on the part of Paul Johnson's part to do what he's been doing in this situation. And I felt, as president of the organization, that we had an obligation to commend as well as criticize.
I think you did a good deed by doing it.
What'd you say?
I think you did a good deed by doing it, even though we don't agree with all of his span. We certainly ought to recognize things he does do that are good. I think he was wise and right in a way.
I would like to suggest, while we're on this subject, that would be a bad idea for some of you people to write him and give him some encouragement in this whole situation. He's really been taken to task now by the reactionaries, the radical right-wing element. Of course, we all supported him in the governor's election, but he is really being taken to task now by this particular element, this group. And it would, I'm sure he'd appreciate any encouragement he might get from any place right now. He's looking for friends, as a matter of fact.
Well, actually, he's not doing anything but what he said he would do. He said he would do this when he was running. So what, they had no argument with it. Yeah, in his inaugural speech, yeah.
Huh?
When he was running, he was creating racial discord.
Oh, yeah. But I mean in his inaugural address.
Yeah, you can have that. I'll be glad to furnish for that.
I have, incidentally, I've heard a lot of real favorable comments from inside our group concerning the job that he has done,
What'd you say?
or the lack of activity that he has. I've heard some real favorable comments from a lot of our people
Well, in this particular
concerning this.
situation, I can join
Hey,
with it.
Tom,
But then there's a whole lot
would
of
y'all like to
things.
order some coffee? Would you like to have some coffee? Let's see how many, huh? Huh?
Well, I don't have a cold.
We'll order coffee for everybody, but, let's see how many wants Cokes. Raise your hand and see how many Cokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah,
bring my blanket.
oh, no.
Bed spray.
Dan wanted me to mention the fact that the governor ignored the citizen council rally here in Jackson, so, and conveniently left town and didn't attend that rally. Thought this was significant in itself. And I'm sure that all of you read news reports of this meeting.
That's when Wallace was
Right, when Wallace was over here as a featured speaker.
Yeah, Barnett introduced him.
Barnett had his sheet out there.
Yeah, Monette was there. But the significant thing about this whole thing, I think, I hope you all took note of it, was the fact that they didn't have the huge turnout that they thought they were going to have.
I mean, they had 6.
Well, they estimated between 6,000 and 7,000, but this was their own estimate, so I figure about 3,000, maybe 4.
They had previously said they were gonna have at least 10,000.
So this
I
was
just
the,
turned it down.
He just turned it down.
you got an electrician in the house.
Now we can just get the man to get us some hot water.
Coffee, you bring water, Dan.
Nobody's electrician.
We want coffee now, not hot water.
Thing back going.
Every one of them joined, Matt, when they
I want to bring you up to date concerning our situation with the TV station. How many of you have read the recent news reports of the Commission's decision in regards to these petitions? All of you read it? There's a couple of developments that have occurred here that I think probably I might should bring you up to date on. The president of the First National Bank, Mr. Robert Herring, became interested in this TV station after the Oxford fiasco. The bank apparently bought some stock in the Lamar Life Insurance Company, and apparently Mr. Herring has pretty well been placed in charge of the TV station itself. I got a phone call from him one day, wanting to have some conversation. So Brother Knight and myself went over and visited with him. This had been several months ago. He wanted to impress upon us the fact that he and his associates were very much interested in doing the right thing as far as the programming was concerned with the TV station, and asked us if we didn't think there'd been some improvement in the program. And of course, at that time, we advised him that the answer to the whole thing, as far as the petition was concerned, was to eliminate Mr. Fred Beard, the manager of the station, and Mr. Dallas Wales, the director of programming of the station. That this would probably solve the whole problem down there. Of course, he couldn't make any commitments in this direction. The thing rocked along, and the commission finally got around to making a decision, as all of you are probably aware of. Instead of renewing the license for a full 3-year period, as they had in the past, they renewed it only for a year and put them on probation status. We have only one copy of the commission decision down in the office, but it's rather interesting to note that the chairman of the commission, Mr. Henry himself, and another member of the commission disagreed with the decision to renew the license without a hearing. And they wrote a dissenting opinion that really went to the heart of the whole thing. They felt that a hearing should be held before the license was renewed or anything was done. This is what the dissent really got down to. Now, the commission in their decision made mention of the fact that Mississippi was going through a transition period as far as race relations was concerned, and that they felt that a hearing would create more problems than it would solve in this particular area. This was really the basis of renewing the license more than anything else, was this. This is what they hung their hat on more than anything else. Now, since that time, since the commission rendered the decision,
I have been contacted again by Mr. Harry, and I had a visit with him and the new president of the Lamar Insurance Company, Lamar Life Insurance Company. And both of these gentlemen assured me that they were going to do everything possible to make sure that this station did conduct themselves as they should in line with the commission's directive. Now I got a letter a few days ago from Mr. Warren Wood, who is the legal counsel for the Papermakers Union, who I've known for a number of years. And he has done quite a bit of practice before the commission for other groups. And he was rather wrought up over the commission's action and suggested that we give consideration to appealing this commission's decision through the courts. We want to talk to Stanton about this thing a little bit before it's over with. Before any action is taken, we will bring it before the executive committee and possibly the executive board if we decide to go this route. But I think that we have made considerable progress, and we can be proud of what we have done already in this direction. What do you think, Dan?
I did too, Claude. Didn't that order, though, that prohibition order, probationary order, instruct the station or representatives of the station to meet with representatives of various segments of the community in terms of developing public service programs. Which I think is one of the most important things in the order.
Yes, that's it. And they, of course, this probably was the reason he wanted to, Mr. Herring wanted to talk with me about this thing. I know that they met with some of the Negro groups and then they have a meeting with them on this thing.
So yeah, you have a station that before was going its own way, saying whatever it wanted to say on the air, putting on any kind of program, now being ordered by the FCC to consult with labor, with the Negroes and with other minority groups in the community about its public service program. What sort of programs?
Yeah, that was a news item 2-3 weeks ago.
What was that?
Consulting.
Yes, this was part of the story. Some of the stories carried this along, the story on the commission's action about the fact that they should consult with these groups and so forth. That was part of the story that carried the story on the commission's decision.
On your court case, so I think your courts are going to roll that this is the courtesy section of the commission. And I don't think the court's going to
Don't look like I can bring it home. Legal question.
Well, this is something we ought to get into with it. I hadn't even said anything to Weissenberg about the letter from Wood. You know what I mean? Well, that's something, of course.
If they refuse to renew the license, the station can do that in a case to appeal to the courts, whether or not you could appeal to the courts over this kind of an action of the commission.
When is the year up? Year from the date of the.
The date it was renewed, yes. It started, what was the date of that thing? You remember the date? It was, around the 1st of May, I think, something like that, I believe. And then
They've been operating for almost a
they've been
year
operating without a license. Now, the renewal date is from the date of the decision, a year from that date is what it really is. I forget what the date was, around the 1st of May.
I think you want a tremendous stick on this thing, even without the hearing, Because the television license is the most valuable piece of property. And you have gotten a decision that, in a sense, orders them to cease and desist.
Yes. And then we had, the vote was 4-2, remember, there's 2 people voted against the commission's decision. And then chairman of the commission itself wrote the dissenting opinion.
And one of them.
Well, this has got them all shook up in itself.
Yeah, because they wanted to go further.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't they were opposed in the ordinary sense. They wanted to go further.
They wanted the hearing. They thought a hearing should be of course, if we would have got a hearing, we would have really tore them up, and they knew this. They knew this, the managing the station there. Mr. Coffee?
Of course, I think our decision has to be based on real reason.
Yes.
We accomplished enough.
Yeah.
Except this commission's ruling.
Yeah. Well, we,
Allowed to operate a year before this thing comes up again. If they don't mend their ways and don't meet with the business community and develop the right kind of programs, you'd sure be in a good shape to get a hearing a year from now.
yeah. And this is what the manager of the station, the management of the
Block
station.
them from getting.
Right.
Right.
They'll be out of business then, somebody else will get that.
And you probably could do that before you could hear it in court anyway. It'd take longer in court than a year.
Oh, yeah. That's my opinion. Well, let's go ahead and take up the other item that we want to take up with the board. The major item, as a matter of fact, that we want to discuss with you here this afternoon, this matter of affiliation. We laid before you there a new directory that the secretary put together, Ms. Phillips, and you have a directory of all the major local unions in the state. And you'll find an asterisk by the local union that's affiliated. And since that directory was put together, we affiliated several locals that I'd like to call off to you. You just make a note of them, if you will, somewhere on your directory, and then go around and check them off.
We don't have this one in the book.
Yeah, this is one you don't have in there. Chemical Local 749 in Jackson. It is in the book.
No,
It's not in the
it's
book.
it isn't
Just
here.
like this in the back of
Is
your.
this International Chemical Workers, ICW?
Yeah.
7 what? What's the number?
749
Might add,
in Jackson.
formerly a Teamster local.
This is one that
Pat-
Mills took
Pat
away.
Mill.
Pat Mill. This is the one that Mills
They
took
are
away from
affiliated.
him.
They got them CLU already.
749. You got that? 87 members. Carpenter's Local 3031 in Jackson. This is the Stork Line Group. 500 members.
301.
3031.
How many members?
500 members.
They're in the book. You just put.
They're in the book. You can put a star by there. Has it got one in it?
Well, they cut in before they ran the.
Yeah. This is, actually what this is some locals affiliated, since we sent you that standing of affiliates is really what this is. Some of them might have the asterisk in the book, some of them might not.
You want him to go ahead and serve the coffee and the coach and you just continue here, or you want to take out a minute?
Yeah, go ahead and serve the coffee, and I'll finish this up while he's serving the coffee, and then we'll stop. I wanna give you these figures. CWA Local 3507 in
Who
Greenwood,
had the coach stick your hand?
150 members.
Two right here.
What's the local number, Claude?
3507.
Dan, you call Coco
Yeah.
or Stan?
How many members?
Greenwood.
150.
How many short line here?
What'd you say?
500.
500.
All that affiliated.
We hope we can get some more numbers out of them before long. IBEW Local 1575 in Laurel, 80 members.
Hattiesburg.
Is it Hattiesburg?
1575.
1575 in Hattiesburg. Yeah, 80 members. IBEW Local 480 in Jackson, 100 members.
That's,
480, that's Erickson's local. 100 members. IBEW Local 480.
how many background?
No,
100
he's
members.
still out.
I might say that IBEW is doing a doggone good job with the unaffiliated local unions in the state. We've had several inquiries from several of those locals of recent date. The little IBEW local down at the paper mill has already voted to affiliate. We haven't received the affiliation yet. And the new local that you have over here at Brandon is
going to affiliate sometime in the near future. All right. Yes, and we've lost.
Is this all the new ones now?
Yeah, that's the new one since that quarterly standing affiliates was sent out. Yeah. Now we've lost a couple of locals since that was sent out. Sheet metal local in Pascagoula with 260 members.
The rest of it are Colts, Dixon have.
We've
What's that local number?
407. Now I've of course been in touch with the officers and they've assured me that they're gonna do everything they can to bring the local back.
How many members they got?
260.
260?
Where is that?
No, put 200 in a,
Oh, I see, 200, yeah.
260 plums.
Oh, I see, 200, that's 407. Then the plumbers local, where's that, the 1, 2, and 3 at? That's
Meridian.
Vicksburg?
No,
Meridian? 60 members, making a total of 260 that we lost.
What's the local number called?
And Meridian?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Plumbers 1, 2, 3 in Meridian.
Where is that sheet metal?
How many members you
Sheet
say
metal
that
in
block?
Pascagoula.
How many
200.
plumbers?
60.
On
60
that on that
plumbers,
last one?
200 sheet metal work, making a total of
200
260.
sheet metal and 60 plumbers.
And in other words, we got a gain of
Plumbers.
approximately 207 members. We lost 260 and picked up 467 is what it adds up to. Again.
Meridian.
Now the total affiliation at the present time is 17,226.
17,226.
That's the present affiliation, total affiliation at the present time. We've had some inquiries from some groups outside of IPEW about the affiliation. The Public Supply Group down in Natchez had asked me for an affiliation blank. They think that they'll probably affiliate in the near future. Go ahead and save the call. We'll take a break now if you want to, and we'll be out here by 4 o'clock if we can. Can we continue the meeting while y'all finish your coffee? All right, let's call the meeting back to order. When we get back, we want to review with you the affiliation problem and a few other factors involved. I want to give you some figures. Some of you received this information before, but for the benefit of the new board members and those of you that don't have this information, I want to review the financial standing of the council and the situation that we're in as far as the affiliation problem, how it relates to the financial status of the council. At the present time,
We got that
that's based on, I got the, on the CD, since I last budget, it take about 20 I want to give you some information. At the present time, we're receiving from the national office in the form of subsidies. From COPE, we get $416.66 to subsidize the state COPE director. This amounts to $5,000 a year. Go towards Tom's salary.
This is a monthly figure, Carl?
This is a monthly figure.
And
And expenses at $5,000 a year, broke down on a monthly basis, $416.66. From the FFL-CIO, we get $487 a month. This was the arrangements worked out by Brother Smith prior to our last convention when we agreed to reduce the per capita back to 20 cents in order to keep operating. On salaries. This means simply that the subsidies are paying about 2/3 of the salaries of both Tom and myself, and that the organization is really not self-supporting.
I understand that we've had some people talking about reducing the staff back to one full-time man. And the reason I'm putting this idea to you is to show you that the organization is not really supporting one full-time man. This is what it really gets down to. The total salaries of Tom and myself this is a monthly base figure, isn't it? Is $1,420.83 compared to the total subsidy of $903.66. The council is picking up approximately $500 of the cost of salaries. I'm bringing this
What was the
total of which of the total salaries?
Yeah.
$1,420.83. Compared to a total subsidy of $903.66. I'm giving you this information to use when some of these people talk about reducing the staff of the council back to one full-time man, and the fact that the council is not really paying the expenses of one man at the present time. Now, we got a most severe problem on the affiliation thing. Even at the present time, with the subsidies, the council is not breaking even. We've had to call on Brother Smith for additional help in the last month in order that we could call this board meeting, as a matter of fact. This is where we are at the present time because of the affiliation situation.
I'm gonna become known as old Moneybag Smith here pretty soon.
And of course he came through that. Now, as I view the situation, after reviewing our books and trying to put together a budget based on past year's experience, we need an affiliation of 20,700 members to break even.
You mean with the subsidy?
With the subsidy that we're presently getting.
In other words, you need 3,500 more members.
We need 3,500 more members than we got right now to break even and operate as we are operating now. And we've done everything we can do to keep the council's expenses down to a minimum. So what we want you to do is to help us any way that you can to improve the affiliation situation. You'll contact the locals. They have to look in that directory over, and Brother Knight's got some information he's going to pass out to you. If you'll just arrange or talk to these people about inviting Brother Knight or myself or one of you people into the local to discuss this affiliation thing, then that will certainly be of valuable assistance to us. We're spending as much time as we possibly can on this affiliation problem. Tom now has some information he wants to review with you in connection with the affiliation situation.
Claude has gone over with you some of the new affiliates that we've gotten since this directory was prepared. Now, in order to make it easier for you to assist us, which we are requesting here, and hope we know you will do in this effort, I have prepared as best we have them now, and I can't guarantee that these names or addresses are all accurate and up to date. You know, our contact with the unaffiliated is not too good, but I have prepared a list of the unaffiliated as we have them by central body district, and I will give you a copy of the one in your area. In addition to this, those central body presidents, we have one or two here that are not here, will get a copy of this, of the ones in their area, along with a letter and some affiliation links, and by the way, I have some for you too.
in the mail the first thing next week. Let me, before I pass those out, let me just give you a few figures here that will, I think, make just a little clearer to you that the problem we've got. Affiliated with the council, we have 121 local unions, 12 central bodies, the Mississippi Amalgamated Joint Board, the IBEW State Association, Gulfport Building and Trades, Jackson Building and Trades, and the 5th Congressional District Court. Now that is our affiliations broken down by local, central bodies, other state organizations, and the Building Trades Council. And of course this is all indicated in the book, but I just got it together. You might be able to tell a little more about it. Now, not affiliated, and of course my figure is conservative, 196 local unions. And this figure does not include the postal clerks or the letter carriers, which is some 70 or 75 local unions at least in the state. Nor does it include the maintenance of way employees. This is some of the railway unions.
Small, just really small.
They're all fairly small. But this 196 figure does not include any of the locals of those organizations. As I say, this is a conservative figure. You can tell, you can compare now the affiliated against the non-affiliated, see a little better what our problem is here in this.
You really can't count the postal clerks and the letter carriers by local unions and get a true picture, because they have a local union in each post office if they're just 2 men working.
Yeah, that's right.
So they'll have local unions with 2 and 3 men. So they'll have a large number of locals, which really doesn't mean much because they're so small.
I might add this in connection with the carriers. As you know, since President Kennedy issued the directive giving these people the right to sit down and bargain with the management and the local postmaster, their organization has gone to considerable work and trouble attempting to instruct their people along the lines that we've already been used to in our local unions. They refer to them as branches, not local. Brother Ramsey and I and Brother Bob Starnes have participated in a number of these statewide workshops that the letter carriers have conducted here, having them conduct these classes and a grievance procedure and things of this kind. Last Sunday, I made their state meeting in Biloxi, at which time I talked at length on their affiliation problem. Of course, their regional director was there out of St. Louis, and I put him in a position where he had to get up and back me up, plug for affiliation. I might say we have now affiliated the biggest branch they have, which is the one here in Jackson. We have the promise of some of their smaller groups, but now promises, of course, don't pay any bills. I thought you should know this. And of course, the clerks, since I have known anything about this organization, we've never had but one of the branches of the clerks affiliated. This was one in Meridian. And they became disillusioned about a number of different things, and despite what a number of us could do, pulled out of the council. So we don't have any of the clerks. So that's the situation at the moment. Now,
let me say a word about those 2 unions. I have a suggestion to make for you. If you could get the State Association of the Letter Carriers and the State Association of the Postal Clerks to affiliate as if it were a local union, all of its membership, and give it representation, just treat it like a local union. You might then be able to encompass all of these small locals which is impractical to have an affiliation, but send a delegate if they did have it.
we have tried this, man, to get the state organization.
Now, the big branches of these organizations in the large cities, of course, could affiliate directly as any other local union, but then you could lump all of the small ones together and affiliate it as through their state association and treat it as a single local union.
know, the post office, in Mississippi is in the Memphis region. Now, the regional director, their unions, when they reach an impasse in bargaining on agreements, they go from the postmaster in the local town to a representative of the regional director plus a representative of the union, and they try to decide it there. Now, Charles Poole is the assistant regional director who handles these impasses in the post office, and he is very, very pro-labor. And because of his record being pro-labor and giving the postal unions a fair shake on the impasses, he stands in very, very well with the postal unions. Now, I think you've met Charlie.
Yes, I made him in Memphis.
Well, Charlie is a close friend of mine, and I'd like to get him down here to meet with Claude and Tom, and then get him, through his position, to get the heads of these postal unions and set up a meeting between Blue, Claude, and Tom, and the heads of the postal unions in this state. And I think in that way we can get some real affiliation. Now, if you can meet with him, I can get him down here, I believe, on the 19th of June before your meeting on the 20th, and we can lay plans for this.
All right, see what you do on that, yeah. And you wanna pass that stuff up? Yeah, you can go ahead.
I'll ask you a question now. You know, the veteran hospital down there, they got a union.
Yeah, this is one of these governmental unions.
I got to working pretty good with that president by joining the CLU. And all at once he come up and said they couldn't take any parts in politics. He couldn't get in there.
Hide behind the hatch act.
Yeah, this comes up every once in a while in different parts of the country. Of course, there's no validity to it at all, because they're not going to be in violation of the Hatch Act by affiliating with the
It is legal.
body. Certainly,
Yeah.
if their parent organization can affiliate with the AFL-CIO, then their locals can affiliate with the central body.
They just can't be active in any political campaign is what it adds up to, and what get out and work active, but it's for county.
They can
This is the only
participate in
restriction?
they can participate in COPE and making the decisions on endorsements and everything else. But
Right.
They just can't go out and campaign.
That's the only restriction, is that the Hatch Act provides.
They can't go out and solicit funds.
Brother Pyle has got a suggestion here I think might be worth considering here in connection with this affiliation.
I think this affiliation problem is your most serious problem that council faces, and I think in order to make headway on it, you're gonna have to do it through this executive board. You members here are going to have to, in your localities, set up appointments with local union presidents, you're closer to them than Tom and Claude, and have Tom and Claude come in and talk about affiliation. Now, I believe in order to get people to do the maximum amount of work, you've got to give them recognition for what they do. So I propose that this board vote to have a plaque for distinguished service to the labor movement, cost you about $20 or $30, and award it at the next convention to the board member who sets up the most appointments with local unions to have Tom and Claude come in and talk about affiliation that results in the largest number of locals being affiliated.
What do y'all think about the suggestion?
Ain't no spending my money again.
I don't believe that would be your money then in this
I
case.
didn't quite get that.
Because somebody's got to affiliate.
In
somebody
other words,
order
what
to
they're
earn it.
asking you to do now is to go out and make appointments in your areas with local unions that are not affiliated, you find them that's directory.
Just like you've been doing.
Tom and Claude to come in and talk about affiliation, or you talk about affiliation.
And they might be able to.
All right, then, for the board member whose efforts result in the largest number of locals being affiliated with the council, at the next convention, award him a plaque, which will cost you somewhere between $20 and $30, for distinguished service to the labor movement, with his name on it, and present it to him at the convention.
All right, I'll make that motion.
You all have that motion?
Y'all get ready to come to the coach.
You get a second to that motion?
I'll second.
He thinks he's.
You understand the motion now is that we
Thanks, he is.
award a plaque to the board member at the next convention
responsible for the most affiliations, we'll say. Right? Between now and the next convention. That's actually what you meant. Discussion on the motion.
Just a minute, yeah.
Indicate.
Why don't you add to that, or any CLU president?
This might be a good idea. Yeah, board member or CLU president.
Now, this is affiliation not with CLU, it's with the state council.
The state council. That's what he knows what you mean. He wants to add the president of the central bodies to the board.
Because some of the presidents not on this board, you see.
Right.
I'd put it in and, I wouldn't put it in nor, I'd give one to each of them.
Each one of them?
Yeah, why put them in competition with each other? They ought to team up.
You want the state council, not the central vice president.
Yeah, if he does anything about it.
In other words, your motion would say that an award be made to the board member responsible for the most affiliations and to the central body president
Responsible
for the most affiliations in the
You
state.
might go to one central body president and a board member in a different district.
This is a very good suggestion because we have a number of areas that don't have board representation.
That's right.
Do we have any further discussion on that motion? Not all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, so ordered. Smoke's about to get the secretary, she said.
Secretary ain't the only one that's about to get it.
I didn't notice it while I was sitting here.
So does Tom,
I'll put it out.
chance to get that. I would like to offer another suggestion to you on this affiliation thing. It's very obvious that we have the best affiliation comes from the international unions that push affiliation with this organization. And I'd suggest to you, those of you that might be out of an organization where we have a number of locals not affiliated, that you write the president of your international union and ask their cooperation on this affiliation problem. Now, I personally know that Joe Rourke with IB, who was formerly out of IB, what he is out of IBEW, is the deputy co-director, along with Freeman, the president of the IBEW, and Joe Keenan, the secretary treasurer, that they're all pushing the affiliation of IBEW locals, and that's the reason we've been picking up the affiliation of IBEW, and how actually they've saved one or two from dropping out. So the support of the International Union is really important. Of course, Brother Smith can go into this in more detail with you.
This is really the key to it in the
Yeah.
long run, and a number of the international unions, the IBEW is one of them, but a number of them are pushing hard on their local affiliates now. We're getting more results now than we've ever gotten before.
Stan, this is what Stanton spends about how much of your time on.
Well, I have one girl in the office does nothing but this.
She works on nothing, this is nationwide now, right? It works on nothing but pushing the affiliation problem all over the United States.
Processing the
State
list,
Council.
communications on the international union presidents.
There's one particular group in this state that some of you might be able to help us out with, and that's the woodworkers. This is a group that we have to push affiliation out of anybody in the state.
And this is one where the international union can't do anything.
That's a problem for God.
James might be able to do a little something, some of them, Tom.
I don't think so, Claude. I
don't know about it.
appreciate you thinking so.
Tom, do you have any, Tom, do you have anything else to bring up before the meeting?
No, I don't think so, Paul.
Do you have anything that you'd like to say before we end the meeting?
No, except that I'm very pleased with the progress that you're making. I think you're doing a good job. Keep it up. Glad that we can be of help sometime.
Hey,
Keep bringing us some money, Smith.
does any member of the board have anything they'd like to bring up before we adjourn? Brother Goodman?
Well, I don't know if any of the members, I don't know how familiar you may even be with this thing. I'm sure that probably everybody has heard some rumors or
facts or something concerning the status of our local union in Columbus at the present time that some of you might be interested in. If you are, I'd be glad to report the conditions of that local at the present time and what has happened and why and so forth. The local is under trusteeship from the International Union since April the 7th due to violation of the International Constitution in connection with per capita tax, which did affect this organization the same as the International Union and the district. The financial secretary seemed to take it on himself to pay on the number of members that he wanted paid on rather than the full membership. In the presidential election that we had last year, which comes under the Landon Griffin bill, required membership checklist in order for the people to vote. And during this time, I began to notice that the financial secretary and the recording secretary was having a heck of a time making up the list in order to get into the International Union. I started an inquiry and found that they were paying on approximately 500 to 550 members. Yet we had in excess of 700 members. So first thing led to another until we finally got everybody informed of this fact. And of course, consequently, at the next executive board meeting of the International Union, the local was placed under trusteeship. And at the present time, at our membership meeting Wednesday of this week, I finally, after the third attempt, got a motion passed before the membership that we would go back since 1961, pick up the total tab of what is owed to the Mississippi Labor Council and to the district, pay that in full at one time and make a down payment to the International Union of $3,000 of the remaining $17,000 that we owe them, and pay the rest of it off at the rate of 40 cents per member per month until the balance is paid. So if this proposal is accepted by the International Executive Board on the 22nd of this month when they meet, I'm doing everything in my power at the time to get it accepted through the district office and the international office. While a check will be forthcoming to the state council of a little better than $1,400 immediately. And of course, they are already paying on their full membership. I'm checking.
Oh, no.
I'm gonna talk to you, brother.
Wait a minute.
I'm making sure, I'm checking all of the checks that comes out of the local now. I'm making sure that the state is paying the state and everybody on their full membership at the present time, which is ranging from 700 to 715 to 20 members rather than the 500 that they have been paying on. This is an increase in affiliation somewhat also.
And we certainly appreciate
now, the internal problem will continue to exist in the local for a while. There's no question about that because of political problems that has involved in the thing. But I think I can assure everybody that this local won't be caught in this type problem again, and I don't think we'll certainly. I'm not going to sit around and allow somebody to do this for 4 years before it's caught the next time. That's the status of it at the present time.
Wayne, that's a terrific job.
I hope that in some way that some of the other unions in the state can find out that this was done, because there are others that are chiseling on their dues, and this might make some of them Carolyn, rather than the fact that that
Oh,
Stan
yeah.
might tighten up on you a little bit.
Well, I can say this, that the IUE people have been awfully cooperative on this thing. The what's his name, Steinhauer?
Wesley Steinhilber.
Steinhauer, he was in our office, and we made a third check. He went over our books with Miss Phillips here, and he assured us that they were going to do everything that they could to get this situation corrected, and that they would try to get the back dues from the organization. And I know that Wayman has been working very close to the situation.
Well,
we certainly appreciate what you've been doing over there, Wayman.
I made this request, number one, realizing our constitution on the state level being as it is. For example, a suspension of a local for things of this type, other than actions of forcing them to make payments. Well, I was very specific to Wesley and to Dave Fitzmaurice and also Paul Jennings, who is now our president, that this be the number one request on any proposal that was put to the local, that number one, pay off Mississippi Labor Council, and then go from there, and it has been. That's been their number one proposal on every proposal they've sent to the local union, that first the state be paid off, and then we talk about the district and the international. So that has been the case.
Very fine. I certainly appreciate that. Do we have anything else anyone else wants to bring before the meeting before we adjourn? Are all of you going to be able to make the meeting tomorrow?
I won't, I told you.
You won't be able to?
I'll be able to make the morning session.
You will?
I'll have to
The
move
afternoon
around.
session?
No.
I might say that we're going to have to revise the program we sent out. We're going to have to change it around, and due to the fact that Bill McSorley with the Building Trades Department won't be able to be here till the afternoon session, and the session on Section 7 in particular won't come up till the afternoon session tomorrow afternoon. We'll get Brother Smith on the program in the morning to review some important legislation, 14B in particular, things of this kind. And we'll get Mr. Levis on the recent board decisions in the morning. We hope we can arrange it this way in order to have the discussion on Section 7 all together, while, in other words, we want McSorley here when Al Cara makes his presentation, so they can tie the whole thing together. That will be the plan for tomorrow. The other night, I give you all a voucher, and you take that with you, of course, when you get checked out. He'll probably have the checkbook with him tomorrow, won't you tell him? Yeah. Be merciful. You can fill out your voucher and turn it in to him after the meeting's over tomorrow afternoon. Now, you want to word something?
Yeah, since I haven't said anything all on this meeting, I do want to say this. I don't think that I've ever been in a board meeting that I'm more encouraged in the prospect you've got in this one. You've been hit hard now in the end of the last 2 or 3 years for the race issue. Now, the race issue has been responsible for about 80 to 90% of all your troubles. Thank God, I think that we're beginning now to get out of the woods. I think we're beginning to climb back again, and I think it's going to be reflected in affiliation. I think from here on out, you're going to stop losing members and you're going to start gaining members. I think this meeting that you've got to set up tomorrow is symbolic of the progress that's beginning to be made there. So with that, I just want to make an announcement. There'll be a poker game in Russ McMahon's room tonight at 8 o'clock. Bring your money. If you can't come, just send your money.
Hey, when did you take my room over?
Mr. Chairman, Taylor.
You don't have any hot water.
I would like to hear a comment or two from Brother Smith or Brother Pyle, one or both, on the situation developing on Section 14B at Washington. I feel like they would probably be in a better position to give us a short resume of just where we are, and at least make a few comments on it.
Well, they're having hearings on it, as I presume you know.
Yeah.
In the House. We had our side presented first. Meaning made an excellent presentation of the basic arguments on it. And we've had a lot of support from the Negro organizations, civil rights groups supported us in our position on 14B, and religious groups. opposition's now having their hearing and getting their share of the publicity. Boiled into a nutshell, it's gonna be a close issue. The vote is gonna be close. We think we can win it, but it's gonna be close, and we're gonna need all of the pressure we can get out in the field, in all of the states, on all of the congressmen. Every vote is very important. We don't have enough actual certain votes to win it, but there are enough in the intermediate group. If we can pick up our share of them, we can win the fight.
This, I'd like to slipped up here as an item I wanted to call to your attention, get your opinion on or decision on whether or not we should have this meeting open to the press tomorrow.
I think you should. I always think it's fair about it if you open the meeting to the press and you try to go around.
I definitely think so. It should be open to the press.
Would you like to offer a motion to that effect?
I will. I'll make a motion that we open the meeting
to the press. We have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Brother Neal. Any discussion on that motion? Of course, what we'll do is invite the ones we know are pretty good people. Any discussion?
Management meetings have been over.
They've been getting a lot of publicity on the same thing. Reason I want to raise this question.
One thing, Mr. President, that I question about this.
Yeah.
When we start washing some of our dirty linen, this is not very good with the press present.
Now, what we can do,
They know we got problems, but I don't think we ought to brag about it.
Well, let me say this. The proper thing I think to do, and if this meets your approval, this is what I'll do. Having rearranged the program, as a matter of necessity, we'll invite the press to the afternoon session. Now, this dirty linen stuff you're talking about will be taken care of in the morning session. We'll go into section 7 and things of this kind in the afternoon session. This is where I think we want to cover. Is this not true?
I think you're right.
Do you have any objections to doing this? Then invite them to the afternoon session. We go into section 7 in the afternoon. This is the one they'll want to cover anyhow, I feel like.
Of course, they can probably tell us already about how many affiliations we've got and so forth, but I don't think we need to.
Yeah. So if that needs your approval, that's what we'll do. We'll just invite them out to the afternoon session. Do we have anything else to bring up before we adjourn?
The one thing, Claude, I'd like to also mention, Dan mentioned here a moment ago about this civil rights thing, more or less moving out of the picture and probably improving the image and the atmosphere here. Recently, also, I sent a letter to our International Union office concerning this thing and its organizational efforts in this state. Yeah. And that I have been assured that is also going before this board, the board meeting of the 22nd. And I explained to them, addressed it to the executive board, that the progress that is being made and the different groups in the state more or less meeting this civil rights problem head on, and is somewhat removing it from the problem from organizational campaigns, and feel therefore that if the organizational efforts could be much more effective with that out of the way, and so it is a very good possibility that the International Union may start a large scale organizational effort in the state too, which will certainly won't be any harm to affiliation, because incidentally they do have in their constitution that they will affiliate. There's no.
Well, I mean, in conjunction with what he say, tell you that there is being considerable progress made in the field of organization. It seems like the trend is going towards organization now. A number of unions have met with quite a success in the state in organizational work in recent months. Rubber workers in particular, Ray Smithard has organized about 4 local unions himself in the last 6 or 8 months. All of them have been
the other chemical workers have done the same thing. And it looks like that the thing is coming back our way now, the field of organization. Did you say that, John?
Yeah. I think so.
Well, do we have anything else before we adjourn?
Everything is exposed to alcohol is going to reveal the Klan as one of the most anti-union organizations in the country. Murphy over here, the attorney for the Klan, attorney at the trial down there, morning week accused by the carrier, started life as a strike breaker in the steel company over there. And when the Klan is exposed, as they're going to be in these hearings, you're going to find instances, many instances, of the Klan acting to defeat the Union.
I think this is very true. I think we all realize it. We have anything else before we adjourn? Not, the meeting will stand adjourned.